Starladders. We are one. We are Darken.
We are Lock.
Everyone chasing down, gets a trap, and the knife comes in! Simple, of course, stabs him straight in the chest.
So aggressive late, Dennis catches him off! That's ungodly from Dennis!
Oh my god, that awareness, the timing works out perfectly, just as they tell him.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Drop the Bomb, live from the Ukraine. First time we've been on the road all season. It's something we were planning on doing, and the events are finally starting to happen again. Week 4, that's hard to believe. We're also almost done our first season of 6 episodes. We're over the halfway point.
It feels weird, doesn't it? How has it gone that quickly? We're only going to do 6 of the first season. We have got a second one coming, but this is like the inaugural kind of kickoff, and it's flown by. We're here in Ukraine for a Starladder special.
Yeah, I really like Ukraine. This is my 4th time here. We've been kind enough to be treated to some hospitality for this show. Obviously, we're in one of the full studios, so basically the venue for the event is actually not where we are. It's about an hour cab ride away. We were told 10 minutes, but the traffic was quite heavy to get here.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a last-minute bodge job, but I think we've done a pretty nice little job.
I think we have it, and that's the point I want to make. So just firstly, we stayed a little bit later than we should have at the venue to watch the Navi Astralis game, which we'll talk about, obviously, is that's basically a grand final in itself in a best-of-1 format. But we hopped in the cab then, and we were like, all right, 10 minutes, whatever. Traffic, 5 o'clock, Ukrainian roads and drivers, mayhem ensued. But we got here, and then when we got here, we just walked in. So we're at the Cybersport Arena. It's where they did the Starladder event last March, so March 2015, March 2015, I think. It was the day after my birthday, maybe April, whatever, the start of April. Can't remember, maybe just before. Yeah, end of March and the start of April was Copenhagen Games. And then June of last year, and then since then they've done them in the soccer stadium, which was in March this year, and now we're at the music hall, or I can't remember the official name, Ukrainian concert hall or something like that. But yeah, so this is where the offices of Starladder are, is in this building. They got about 6-7 studio rooms. There's 2 more upstairs, one across the hall here, one in the back, and Navi's head office is out of here. They boot camp here quite regularly, and it's an internet cafe as well. So there's a bunch of people
as well. I couldn't believe the scale of it. When you said like a gaming cafe, I was imagining like a little restaurant with some PCs in the corner. This is actually huge. It's like a big warehouse. You converted. It's like really well
above an IKEA.
Yeah, above an IKEA. It's like really well done up. It's got very modern as well. Really cool place. And thank you so much for Vlad from Starladder hooking this up, and obviously everyone else involved. It's been pretty nice.
Yeah, I have to.
Green screen as well?
Yeah, well, it's not green. They don't see it that way.
Yeah,
they see our logo and your lovely face over here. I have to say, just quickly as well, I apologize. There's something about the Audio Technica mics that when we use them, even when I cast, there's a breathing point that I can't seem to find. So the Sennheisers don't pick up my breathing as much. This one will. I'll try and do what I can about it. We don't have a mute button that we normally would when we cast. So if it's annoying, I'll just choke myself out and everything will be fine. First and foremost, before we get into it, as always, look, huge thanks to everyone that made this show possible. In this case, Starladder, we've already mentioned them, but Space Jam, look, they do so much for us. They really wanted to enable us to do what we can this season. I think so far they provided us with that. We've had a lot of freedom. Our content has been completely our own. They're not overseeing, warlords in that sense. Smells good. And but on top of that, I mean, they really wanted to see they're helping out Luminosity. They had a COD tournament that was pretty cool. They brought some fans in to play with some of their role models and pro players in that sense. Darken as well, same thing. Look, they transformed gaming clothing, man. Like, when would you ever be happy to wear gaming clothing in public? I know, for me, it was. You do it like it's kind of like a hockey jersey or like me wearing an Alonzo shirt. You do it to state your claim, but really it's not that stylish. And with Darken, it's actually they've kind of blurred that line.
Combining fashion and gaming together, right? So it's kind of like a hidden message. The people that know, they know.
Yeah.
And he's kind of like, you can wear good clothes at the same time.
Exactly.
Right?
So anyone in the gaming scene sees me wearing this, they're like, oh yeah, Darken, cool, you're a gamer. Anyone who doesn't, they just see this cool design and they're like, yeah, that's sick. So very cool that they blurred that line. And look, same thing with them and with Twitch. And Fnatic gear, same thing. I mean, look, they make some awesome gear, but more importantly, even though they're associated with Fnatic, same with Darken associated with NIP and some various other teams, there was no obligations. Like, one of the questions we asked Fnatic gear when we signed up with them was, look, we really like your stuff, but if we sign up with you, do we have to kiss ass to the Fnatic team? They said, hell no. Yeah. Like, say whatever you want. Like, these guys are strictly on board to make this show entirely possible, which is super cool and super awesome. So check out their stuff. There's links down below in the below the video on Twitch, and you can find them on Twitter. We tweet them all the time at Fnatic Gear, at Darken. We are Darken. Yes. We are DRKN, and Space Jam E-Juice, I think it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's all below anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So check it out.
And Twitch as well. So yeah.
Yeah, of course. Goes without saying. Those guys have been great.
Anyway, Matthew, so this is a bit of a Starladder special coming in. Obviously, that's the event we've been casting. We did 4 matches today. We did 4 matches yesterday in terms of our cast. Been some up and downs. It's been a pretty rollercoaster event, I would say. Some shock results in it here and there. But I guess that's what we're going to kind of focus on today.
Yeah, I think this event, a lot of people coming into it, we had a player break. Some people were skeptical of the level of CS that we would see for a couple of reasons. One is the roster changes. And the other is that there was 3 spots allocated to Asian CS. And that was mostly due in part to the fact that this event was originally supposed to take place in China, but due to last-minute visa issues, which I have to say I kind of saw coming, like they talked, normally when there's a visa involved, like for example, Moscow, for example, Minsk at the start of the year, they talk to talent like 2 months in advance to make sure that visas are not an issue.
Like, if we're struggling to get teams over to America, imagine what it would have been like to try and get teams to China.
Well, they didn't even talk to us, which was clear to me. Like, okay, teams, some of them have to qualify last minute, you rush those visas, but like the obvious ones are not people who qualify. It's the invited teams and the casters, and they didn't talk to us at all. And I was like, okay, there's clearly not a visa going through in like 2 weeks' time. Yeah. So I saw it coming, then they moved, Starladder was involved, they moved here. Starladder's got deep roots in Ukraine and in Kiev, so again, they throw together an event, and it's been pretty good.
A logistical nightmare as well to get all the kit up there, all the staff. This seems to make a lot more sense for in Europe, and it's great to see the Asian teams over here. I think that's a big talking point of today's show, considering we've just seen another shock result, and we'll kind of get into the results going forward. But it seems like Tyloo, VG, and MVP, they haven't had such a good showing, but still, the Chinese teams especially, they've had a really deep run in this, and they're still in it. So that's really cool.
Well, and I think, and beating 2 of the top 3 teams in the world. I know Na'Vi on HLTV right now is rated 5th. That's in part to the fact that they haven't played that many LANs as of late, including E-League, which a lot of people moved up because of, including Virtus Pro to the number 2 spot, and the simple roster transaction. Yeah. Taking Zeus out the way the HLTV system works, I don't know it in complete detail, but basically players carry a percentage of the points that the team earns. Yeah. So if a player goes to another team, he carries over a certain amount of points, and therefore if he leaves the team, he takes those points with him, and Simple's points were less than Zeus's points, so therefore it took them back down a couple notches. But I still think they're number 2 in the world behind SK when they're in full form. And they lose to a Chinese team. And Virtus Pro, who I would put probably at number 3 right now, although they're number 2 on HLTV, they lose to a Chinese team. And both on Mirage.
Nuts. Mirage, that's interesting. Tyloo brought a whole new game plan to Mirage that I've never seen before. In terms of like their CT setups, that was what we saw in Malmo last time. It was Tyloo coming over and showing us the game could be played slightly differently on the CT side of Cobble. They did it again on Mirage and actually surprised everyone. It was kind of nuts. And 1 second, Matthew, I'm going to cough. So
you're going to cough. Do it. Do it.
I think all right. Yeah, we're good. Yeah, the fact is that they've approached the map in a way I've never seen before. The fact they're going like super aggressive at the start of each round. Normally you have your AWPer playing towards middle and he's getting some backup from connector perhaps. They're actually playing 2 CTs, pushing off short pretty consistently every round with M4s, not even warped, and challenging the players towards mid. It was actually really sick to watch. You're actually out-aiming these players, and it seemed like they actually had so much skill available to them. That was the main thing we've always said about Tyloo. The skill levels are off the charts. As soon as they catch up with the European meta, that's when we said they're going to be a really interesting prospect. The fact, though, is they don't need to kind of do the exact same things we see from our top teams.
Yep.
If they're bringing things they've never seen before, that actually works in their favor. It's very difficult to counter stuff you have never seen before.
And I know Edward was super frustrated. There was a specific round we talk about 2 on catwalk. There was 3 at a time, and he goes to peek. It's like, oh, I see the guy going ladder. And even if he hits that shot, it's like, ba-boom, ba-boom. There comes 2 more M4s, or an op. In one case, it's like, Jesus Christ, what are they doing? And Yanko mentioned it, and I was curious about it. That's almost counter-stratting Na'Vi because they're the team on Mirage that love mid-control.
Yeah.
You give Guardian that position on the map with an AWP, and they're one of the hardest. You can't rotate that way. You got to go all the way through CT. And if you're going through CT and you're late on your rotations, they're already in jungle, which means you can't really go through the vent. So it makes the map super strong for them on the T side. That's one of their strengths. And Tyloo just shut that down.
The thing is as well, I kind of speculated before going into that game. We casted it, right? And I was just saying, right, this is obvious. It's going to work perfectly for Tyloo because we know they have a very passive CT setup. That's what we saw. That's what was so interesting when we saw when Cobble first back in Malmo. We thought, okay, they're not facing. They're making T-sides commit to bomb sites before they even attacking them. I thought, okay, well, this is actually going to work perfectly for them. Now they're going to have to go really deep searching for their picks. It's not going to work out. But it's the exact opposite. They've changed things up. They just out of nowhere, attacking every single round on the CT side. Navi never seen it before, and we saw Edward walking off after that game, and you kind of said some comments on unlucky or something like that, and he just goes, "They just ran at me."
Yeah,
that's all he could say, and it's like, well, yeah, what can he say when you're getting locked down like that? And now Navi knocked out as well. I guess we're getting ahead of it. How do you want to do this?
Yes, let's go. We are getting ahead of ourselves. I mean, Navi going out in the home event. That's going to be the real focal point here. I think let's go group to group because there is a lot to look at in each sense. So Group A, just if you want to bring it up so we make sure we don't make any mistakes here, but Group A was what many people thought was sort of the group of death in the way that it lined up, having Godsent and NIP in there, and obviously they played today in the winners match. We can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
But Dignitas, who's had some form as of late, and Hellraisers, when you never really know what you're going to get, and unfortunately for them in this, we didn't get much. I think coming into it, the 2 teams we expected to go out of the group were NIP and Godsent. Weren't sure of the order. Thing with Godsent coming into this as well, not qualifying for Pro League. They've been boot camping super hard to make sure the LAN is their priority. It's one of the only cases or chances they're going to get to showcase themselves if they can't qualify for New York for quite some time as well, which is odd to think considering the amount of LANs, but without another major, there's not a minor system for them to go into until 2017, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of people had eyes on them, and NIP ended up topping it over them, which was convincing as well when they did. Godsent, though, against Dignitas, maybe start there, 16-3.
What a way to kick it off. It seemed like Dignitas didn't really arrive there. It's a Mirage, a map they're actually very good on. They're actually famed for being good on map. Like, not maybe with this lineup, but with previous ones when they had Pim, for example. That's when they were very good at Mirage. And we're expecting a very nice close game. We haven't seen much from Godsent at all yet. Obviously, the new lineup for the Fnatic players coming back in. We thought, okay, this is actually quite an interesting test for Godsent. But unfortunately, for Dignitas, they just got completely ran over. That was just a pure bloodbath. That wasn't even down to the tactical sort of counterpoints. It was just literally head-to-head duels. It was Godsent completely wrecking them at every single point of the map, which was, for me, was like exciting to see Godsent playing like that. But at the same time, Dignitas just didn't show up. Their key players weren't fragging. Magist Boy even tweeted afterwards, "This is the worst game I've ever had. Wasn't hitting anything." And you just say they just weren't fired up for that game.
I feel bad. I'm like, there, we can see all the sponsors now.
Yeah, you should probably move up.
No, I think one of the points to bring up on that is okay, they didn't play well.
No.
So it was hard to take away what we could from, well, anything really from Godsent going into NIP's game. It's very hard to counter-strat when you don't really see what they're doing. They're just winning. And I think from Dignitas' perspective, Rubino was on a bit of an extended holiday or break or whatever reason he couldn't play.
Yeah.
And I can't remember what the actual detail was, but he wasn't playing.
He basically, I think he said he wasn't feeling the game right now. He needed some time away from it. That's basically the base said.
Shaved his beard, came back, looks 10 years younger.
He needed some time off. He was getting overwhelmed and kind of needed to step back a little bit, which is fine. That does happen. It's like taking a vacation and work, right? Sometimes it's needed. And so he did that, and he came back, and that was probably the first game on LAN I think we've seen since then. It was AZ that filled in for them at the last LAN they were at, the Power LAN, I think it was.
Yes. Yeah.
So he's the first LAN back for him. Horrible start, but they did manage to scrape back.
I was talking to
They beat
it wasn't
Hellraisers, right,
Cajun.
yeah.
I think it was Magistic Boy that I had this conversation with. I talked to Cajun a few times over the weekend, just casual conversation. But Magistic Boy said basically we didn't get to play at all as a team. And, I mean, that doesn't excuse a 16-3 loss, but it does explain that they're not mentally prepared or, you know, well, it's all mental, I guess, if you want to look at it, but they're not ready to go into the server.
The thing is that you're playing against the ex-Fnatic, right? Godsend. They're famed for just playing the basic game of Counter-Strike, working together, and if they're all hitting their shots, it's incredibly hard to stop that truck that's completely plowing you. We saw that time and time again. Dignitas not really hitting anything. And those scorelines can happen against that sort of team, right? They're so skilled. That's what they're relying on, that team. And if you're not going head-to-head with them, that's going to happen. It's just going to spiral out of control. You're forced in that situation. You come to forced by him because it's getting too deep, the scoreline, and you can just run away. And it's just one of those results. It happens from time to time. They did bounce back and managed to beat Hellraisers, knock them out. So, not completely over for Dignitas just yet.
Thought I was going to sneeze. I didn't.
No, you're okay?
I'm okay.
Yeah.
Look into the light, think of the sun, all that good stuff. I mean, it was a very shocking result. And it did, I think, overhype a number of people about Godsend. I for one, was like, damn, this boot camp, holy shit. Like, what are we up against here? And going against NIP, we know that Fnatic's had their number in the recent history. We know that Godsend in their first form at Malmo was also a team that was really giving them a trouble. The domestic rivalry, they went into the semifinals of that. I think they were, 2 rounds away from actually qualifying for the final, and then NIP managed to pull it back and end up winning that tournament in the end, which was great for them. They needed a win. So we didn't know what to expect, and I think a lot of people were really hyped up for that rematch, although it's a very different team. They were excited for that rivalry to continue if it was going to build into something. Ultimately today, though, in that winner bracket, NIP just beat them, bullied them. I think that throughout the course of the tournament, other than the first 7 rounds they played against Hellraisers, they played great Counter-Strike.
I'm not, okay. Which game do you want to reference first? Like NIP.
I think the Hellraisers went straight forward. They just had a slow start, but it was cash. They were always going to pull back in.
The NIP's best map, right? So they're always going to be godlike on that. But regardless of Michael Early coming in, he can slot in quite nicely to that. It seems like whatever NIP do on cash, they're always going to come back. Slow start, but the second half came in. Hellraisers barely got around. That was like complete runaway at that point. Like you said, they got the pistol, a little bit of momentum, the money game working in their favor. But overall, they were completely outclassed. You could see they were out of their depth towards the end of that game. They couldn't contain Forest and get right. And Michael Ailey, he had a very poor game, actually. He wasn't really stepping up at all, but he hasn't had to as of yet. What was interesting, the next NIP game, we were expecting Michael to be very quiet throughout this tournament, but he actually had a really positive approach to it. He had the AWP against Godsend, and he actually ended up getting maybe, I think, 15 frags in the first half, and actually not carrying them to the victory, but he was getting opening frags. We talked about him being the confidence player, right?
The other thing is you go to Overpass.
Yeah.
NIP on Overpass, best of 1.
Yeah.
They qualified on it against Godsend, which is formerly Fnatic, who are good on Overpass.
And NIP don't really play that map famously. That's one of their picks they'll try and avoid in a veto, especially in this kind of one. You've got a best of 1. You never see that come up for NIP. They've got a stand-in as well. I think that's the kind of thing they were going for, though. Obviously, these teams are going to be aware that NIP haven't had a bunch of time to get Michael into the lineup. And if you're going to watch any demos, you probably wouldn't bother watching an Overpass demo, right? You're probably not going to be bothering with that. You think, okay, they're definitely not going to pick it. You throw the wild card in there. You have a little bit of a looser playstyle. We know Exist is calling. Threat's not going to be there for actually to back them up. So it's going to be a much looser NIP. And they actually looked a lot more confident, to be honest. And I think Godsend, they looked rattled. They didn't really know what to do. They shit the bed, if I'm honest. They actually didn't know what to do with their executions. They were either leaving complete flanks wide open. You saw Forest coming, backstabbing them multiple times, and then their executions.
Forest got all the way through past the fountain, down the T-stairs, and behind them, and I think in about 35 seconds one round.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
And Godsend, they just seemed a bit lost on there in terms of their timings, their executions. They wouldn't leave themselves enough time or not enough utility to actually get onto the bomb sites. Time and time again, it was very telegraphed they were going towards B. They hadn't done a default at the start, so NIP rotated toward B. They still had the incendiaries as well. Exist and Freiburg both having great games on that bomb site. Freiburg especially.
Yeah, I want to mention him for sure.
Having a fantastic performance on the B site. Dropping his incendiaries at the right time, waiting for his teammates to rotate over. Had an almost ace and a big gun round as well. He was holding them off multiple times. And NIP looked very comfortable. And we mentioned Michael as well, the AWP, which is interesting. The fact he's on the main AWP role as well. That was kind of an addition. We actually spoke to him yesterday in the lift, I think it was. We were saying to him, oh, are you going to be AWPing here? Kind of as a joke. And he just a bitch. And he goes, yeah, I'm just a bitch. Forrest is still AWPing. Turns up on Overpass. He's AWPing both sides.
Yeah, well, he did say, in fairness, on some maps I might pick it up. And Overpass in one that they don't play, maybe that was his call. Just, guys, come on, I can hop on this map. Let me do it. And then Forrest played reasonably well, but the man you mentioned that I really want to talk about, I've never been one that's vocally critical of Freiburg until lately.
Yeah.
Like, I thought, all right, whatever, Nip's in a slump, he's in a slump. Last year was pretty friggin' bad when you look at his red. Like, He had a terrible year, and there's no denying it. But you think there's got to be a reflux from that, and he's going to come back up the other side and maybe stabilize a bit as a player. He's never done it. The last 3 weeks, when I've decided, all right, I've given up. Freiburg's out of it. Time to let him go. Time to cut him loose. Bring in someone else. The man's been on fire. Online games, sure. ESL Pro League, he's been having good numbers, good nights. Today was one of his best games I've seen him play on LAN in a very long time. He came this close to getting an ace, which I haven't seen him do against a top team in a very long time.
We were so ready for the final bullets as well. We just spoke to him as well after. He's going, "Whoa, Freiburg, you almost got the ace," and he goes, "Yeah, I choked the last kill." It was actually right in front of him, not looking at him. He goes to the full spray, and we thought that was it. He's going to do it. But NIP get into playoffs 2-0. And I don't think anyone really expected them to win the group. I think we thought they'll probably get through. It'll be tight between them and Dignitas, maybe with the stand-in, but they've come out top the group. Godsend, just not far behind, but that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm curious what NIP's up to because Pitt's still not playing, obviously, with the injury. And how long is that going to go on for? And if they continue to get good results...
This is the thing. This is what we said about Disco Doplin. And then
I know,
fell
right?
to shit. And now we've got Makalele.
Way to go, Epsilon.
And we've kind of explored that territory before. You have the great tournaments, and then once you get into the swing of things, you get into the slump when things go wrong, that's when you're going to go back to the same old problems you had before. We can only really speculate what the problem was there. I assume it was a clash of personalities. Playstyle didn't really fit in with the team. They replaced him for Alu, of course, but... are we just going back down that road again? Or is it going to say, "Oh, Michael, come back"? And I assume they're going to be going to. Are they going to DreamHack Bucharest? I guess they'll be have to.
I saw the talent announcement went out. We'll be there. It's basically our second home, the Bad Boys of Bucharest or whatever it is, or the Boys from Bucharest, whatever Richard Lewis called us. Bad Boys is more fitting, by the way, based on our antics when we're there. It's a good place. I don't know the team list, and I didn't actually get a chance to talk to Mark at DreamHack about it. Normally, I know ahead of time who's. I know Cloud9's going to be there, but I didn't see
it's an open, right? It's not a Masters.
It's an open, yeah. It's not a Masters.
They might not be there then. I don't think.
The second Masters, if there is one,
they were last the last
open.
Open. That's when they actually lost to Immortals in the final, right? NIP.
Austin?
No, DreamHack Summer.
Summer.
Open.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
It was Summer. Yeah.
They lost to Immortals.
Yeah, that's right. NIP did. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so DreamHacks have been good to them in terms of finals this year. They've been in 2. Malmo is one of them.
Just to round off Group A, Hellraisers are out. We've got a best of 3 coming up between Godsend and Dignitas.
Obviously, I favor Godsend in that.
Yeah, I would say so as well. But Dignitas obviously looking for some retribution. Going to be trying to do what they can.
Do they default ban Mirage?
I would say so. I would say it's a map.
What is their default ban?
I haven't followed them for a while now. I can tell you they play Cobble
Dignitas.
very well. They play Dust
default.
2. They've started bringing that in since Cajun B came in.
Might be Overpass.
Might be. I can't remember they played.
I don't know it either right now. It's been so long. You'd have to look up the stats and see what map they played the least. But, yeah, I'm not 100% sure. Either way, if they respect me on Mirage, it does give a chance to slip
They
it
don't
in.
really play Train. Nuke.
Well, Nuke, no one's got a lot of Nuke in, to be fair, so we can't really include that. But Train would be yeah, Train sounds like the right default ban. Right, it is definitely one of the customs. I knew that, but
that game's coming tomorrow, right? We've got the best of 3 starting tomorrow, so that's going to be interesting to see who goes through. I'd assume Godsend as well to make the most sense considering that previous matchup. But best of 3, Dignitas bouncing back, and actually the big players stepping up. Magisport looked a lot better today. We saw that game on Nuke earlier. They looked refreshed at least, and I guess that's.
This guy says, "Why are we doing this? No one's booking us for events. We're at the fucking event right now, you moron. Do you watch Counter-Strike?"
You said you wouldn't talk to them.
I said I wouldn't, but I just did. Like, maybe I just got baited. I don't know.
Anyway, Group B, Matthew. G2, FaZe, Flipside, and the interesting team, MVP Project. We kicked things off G2 versus MVP. We thought, okay, we've already seen Tyloo step up. What are MVP going to do here? And they got completely wrecked. It's like 16-2, 16-3. Let me have a look. 16-3 on Train. To be fair, G2, very strong on that map. That's one of their go-to maps as well, along with Dust 2. MVP... I think that's going to be a rough day in the office for them. They actually started on the T side. They got completely wrecked, like auto snipers, and one Scream got in the mode. He's having a good tournament so far, and it seems like they couldn't really get into it whatsoever. It's a difficult test here. Obviously, going against 2 different styles, they don't get to play against the European teams at all, so it's always going to be a difficult affair. You couldn't really read too much of it. The problem is MVP can take that demo back. It's not like you can learn too much in those games. You're getting wrecked by like 3 snipers, and like they're just running around and completely out-aiming you across the board. So that was interesting for G2 to kick things off. Then moving on, obviously we had FaZe in that lineup as well. They played against Flipside. They completely wrecked them on Train as well, 16-2. It looks like Flipside just didn't really arrive at that game whatsoever. FaZe have been on the ascendance recently. We talk about that. Alu joining the team and actually looking like a really positive influence on them. He's actually helping out tremendously. They needed a top sniper, and it seems like he's actually delivering. We saw his antics going on today as well. It seems like he's in very good shape right now. And the team as a whole, apart from the most recent result, he seems like a very interesting addition. It wasn't until we saw the Dust 2 game against G2 and FaZe today in the winner bracket. That's when it was the 13-2 result, right? On the T side.
13 was it?
It was 13-2 in the first half.
13. Yeah, sorry. I was thinking you said 16-13. It was 16-10 in the end. Yeah, that's right. Sorry.
So 13-2 in the first half.
Yeah.
For G2.
It was
on the CT half as well.
FaZe threw in the towel. Yeah. They were. I think there was one execution they tried to make toward A, where they threw smokes over. We saw AZ lining up a smoke, and then they just got obliterated. And then after that, it was just like, everyone just go find picks, and they all died every time. I think they finished the first half. I don't think anyone had double digits for kills.
No, I remember saying a line. It was Scream had 22 kills after the first half. The whole of FaZe the Collective had 24 kills. So that showed you how wrecked they got in terms of a 5-man unit. It was just Scream completely destroying them on the CT half, which was positive because we've been talking Pro League throughout the whole first 2 weeks. G2 cannot play the CT side right now. They can post great numbers on the T side. CT has been abysmal. But they seemed refreshed today. Smiths was just aggressive all over the map, hitting all the shots. Shoxy on the double orb setup as well, helping them out, looking like he was on fire at the moment as well. And Scream, I think he got MVP of the map overall. He was having a great game. And FaZe, I think they said they made a decent run of it in the second half. But I think when you get 13-2, you're never going to bounce back there. You can make one mistake and that's about it. And then
that's one of the points to bring up though. Is Alu was very good, I have to say, on the A ramp, the A slope. And hit in 2 rounds, 6 frags, 3 in each, up close shots, had a no-scope on a drop down towards CT that got a little awkward when he got caught on the ledge, not really committing to the movement early enough. And if you watch just his play and how much momentum they got, it's a shame they didn't put a little more into 2 or 3 more rounds on that T side, and they were in it. And the interesting thing for G2, you mentioned it during the cast as well. Of course, this game was just this morning, so their CT side's a bit abysmal this year. They got a gift from FaZe in that, and Smith stepped up, they had shots, but the double up setup Shox was even more impressive in the way he was being aggressive and taking the fight, finding picks. I think he had one round where he went aggressive toward Long Cave. He had another through the doors. They pushed him through the doors at one point. Now, they did eventually lose that round. It would have been a back-to-back reset. That was the second round that they gave up. I think it went to 5-2 at that point for FaZe, but they pushed mid with Shox watching with an AWP. All right, everyone go. I'll just sit here now. They were getting very confident in their style. Yeah,
it was great to watch. And I guess that means the loser bracket game is going to be FaZe versus Flipside in the best of 3. Yep. We did see Flipside overcome MVP on Mirage again, and that was actually quite an interesting game, That was actually one of the ones that got a little bit too close. It seemed like Flipside were, although it was quite a comfortable victory in terms of the scoreline overall, they started off pretty poorly. There was some really intense rounds there with MVP stepping up in the full eco rounds with 1M4 save, for example, like that. They were coming in, and it was it Zin that got the 5-man? Let me have a look.
No, it would have been
Sound. Pretty sure it was Sound with the saved M4.
That was, you're thinking of the Tyloo game with somebody. That was yesterday against Na'Vi. When he saved it B, got 2 kills walking in, pushed through the smoke. Simple went around behind him, and he walked out, got the defuse, and then killed the last guy. That was yesterday. That was Tyloo. That was somebody.
Was that game? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was yesterday. Game. Yeah, I was going to say there was no ace today. But
it was full eco wins.
There was 2. Yeah, I mean, Flipside gave them rounds on the CT side that if they didn't, it would have been a much more one-sided scoreline. Let's not credit to them for having good accuracy and good mechanics with the pistols, and pushing confidently. But that game was actually not really much to contest once we swapped over, and we'll talk about that. But yeah, Flipside giving massive gaps, horrible default to start things off.
Yeah.
I expected them to tilt into oblivion, and somehow they held it together. And I talked to the manager after, and she said basically, I don't even think it wasn't tilting. It was just a matter of waiting to autopilot to kick in on the CT side.
Yeah.
But 3 players pushed through and went right through CT, got behind them, get 2 kills with a pistol, round over. They get the AWP, they get an AK. They had another one where they got 2 kills at Palace. Zine, it was them that time. He goes through, picks up a gun.
He was playing aggressive in the Palace.
Yeah, exactly. He goes through with the 5-7, picks up a gun. Now, World Edit did refrag him, but they'd already gotten another kill on top of that, so it was like a 4 versus 2 or something in favor of MVP at that point, and they had 2 rifles already to work with. So there was some issues from Flipside for sure. A lot of holes in that default, and it's not something that we expect from a team that Blade works with. Normally, Blade's a very structured in-game leader, and I have to say for a team that was normally considered T-sided, they've been slipping tremendously on the T-sides.
Yeah, they've had some interesting results recently. A massive string of bad results, losses all over the place. Finally getting a win here today, but they do have to face FaZe in that best of 3. You have to say FaZe have got a huge advantage going into that one after 16-2ing them on the first day as well. It will be an interesting game. Obviously on LAN, these big games, players can step up, but it's well led. He's been pretty lackluster at the moment. Hasn't really been setting the world on fire. And Shara has actually been their best player.
Yeah, Shara was sick.
Which has been an interesting result. That's a weird sight to say. Like, he's sometimes considered one of the weaker pro players, and he actually was stepping up today, so keeping them alive.
Yeah, I think he had 17 kills at half, which is impressive. So then we swap over. All right, we have to talk about this. Katie and you got wrecked on Twitter, but you did make a good point to start that off. I think it was 2 T-side rounds in 24 played. Can't remember what the actual number was, but MVP, T-sides, abysmal to the point where you and I were left dumbfounded as to why you completely clear out the B site.
Oh, that round was...
You have HSK, I think HSK, is that his name?
That is one of their names.
It was him. It was a 3-letter name, so it was HSK. Behind bench, you've already cleared out. He wins 2 kills for you, wins a duel against an earlier rotation. I think it was Mark Golov, but I'm not 100% sure. You have the site. You have bomb in the apartments, and you go underpass and go to A. Don't worry, guys. We don't want to plant. We're just going to go to you.
That was completely nuts.
They were already saving.
They had the bomb.
They stayed in the A site.
They had about 30 seconds remaining. They pick up the bomb in the B apartments towards T-spawn, right? And okay, they've got a player in bench and B, and they've got no idea what's going on towards A. So their players at this point, it looked like Wardo was actually saving his AWP on the A side. He was just like, you know what? I'm out of this. He was actually camping behind the bomb site boxes on the side. He's just there with an AWP. And then all of a sudden, he's like, what the hell? I can hear footsteps. They run past him with the bomb in hand, drop that, and then his teammates are just like scurrying around, trying to get back into the round. They run through, and at that point, the round's over, and it was a horrible display.
That shows the inexperience. Call. Yeah, inexperience for sure. The T-sides are all over the place. Now, we do know they have practice issues in Korea. Valve didn't even have supported servers there for a long time. Do they now, actually?
Well, that's what they were working on last time we were there. So
yeah, I don't know if it
I
actually
think it's the kind of thing
happened.
they would announce, but... maybe they do. I have no idea.
I would have thought I would have heard about it by now. Either way, there's only, 2 other teams they really practice against, and although China's kind of close, it's not that close. That's a big ping difference with all the routing issues.
Right then. Well, to round off Group B, G2, they're through to the playoffs already. We have the loser bracket final between FaZe and Flipside and best of 3. I feel like FaZe will completely run that over 2-0. I feel like they didn't wake up today. They had poor form, and I think they know that. You can see they're struggling without the in-game leader. It was Kiyoshima and AZ taking the role today.
Yeah.
Their T side, you can see
he joins tomorrow though.
That's right, and I feel like they'll get stronger from that. You can see they rely on him. Their T side was poor today and does too. They were lacking the tactical depth. They were running the same defaults every time, not having the executions. I think when Robin comes back in, they'll be okay. They'll be a much better unit, and they need him for now. Obviously, the coaching rule dictates he won't be with them going forward. Well, not as much.
Well, that's one of the kind of summarizing points I want to do at the end of the groups is that because NIP's obviously stated what their intentions are.
Sure.
So,
but yeah, that's to come tomorrow. FaZe was Flipside in the best of 3s on Friday. So obviously there's all the lose brackets tomorrow. We see those best of 3s. But Group C, Matthew. In this group we had
arguably my favorite group.
I think so.
Yeah.
We had Heroic, Tyloo, Astralis, and Na'Vi. So then.
So to start this off, again, if everyone looked at Group A and thought Godsent, NIP, Dignitas, Chance to Spoil in there, and thought, okay, that is the group to watch, I instantly looked at Group C and said, for all the wrong reasons, that's the group to watch.
Yeah.
Astralis in a slump, struggling tremendously. They've lost 4 straight matches to Heroic, who are right now on HLTV in the ratings moving up. But if you look at the recent column, the highest rated recent team of anyone.
Sure.
And have jumped, I think, the most places. Most places in the upper teams. There might be someone at the back end.
They're 11th right now, I believe. So
yeah, but I think the places moved up.
That's what,
I think they jumped.
Yeah, definitely. I was to state where they've got to.
Yeah, good point. So yeah, I thought they were in the top 10 now, but I think they will be after this tournament.
Definitely.
So, and then you have Tyloo, who we know has beaten Liquid and SK in the past, right after MLG Columbus at Malmo. And Na'Vi, the team that I would have thought is home soil, simple, killing at ESL Pro League, favorites for the tournament. They're out.
Okay, well, how did this begin?
Tyloo and Na'Vi
versus Tyloo. What the fuck happened here? So you've got Na'Vi. They used to be one of their absolute best maps. You didn't want to play Na'Vi on Mirage. That was it. You just didn't want to go near them. We kind of touched on this at the beginning of the show, but basically let's highlight it. Tyloo coming to a play style we've never seen before on the CT side. I think I've been casting this game for like 2 years now, and I've played for 10, and I've never seen the kind of setups they were bringing to the table on the CT side. Something very new, and that's what we expect from these different regions. No one's been watching their demos. I don't think anyone's going to concentrate on their game. They expect to win it. Na'Vi probably went into this saying they're going to be decent aimers, but we can just play our own game and get away with this. No, you cannot, because it looks like Tyloo are completely, I'm not going to say countered you, but in terms of their playstyle, I don't think it was specifically designed to beat Na'Vi, but the playstyle they're bringing to the table.
You have to question it, though, because the way they played
it was a counter, but I don't think it was specifically created.
Counter,
right?
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. But just to kind of breeze over it, basically they were playing two players who are rifle players with like a little fragging duo. It wasn't a 3-man unit, just 2 of them every round. Primarily going towards short off Mirage and actually pushing aggressively. Using smokes and flashbangs from the teammates on the bomb site, they would face, find a kill, fall back, and always make sure they're trading. So if someone went down, they'd get the frags back in return. And Na'Vi just didn't know how to lock this down. It was actually quite a spectacle, I would say.
Yeah, well, and this is the thing, because Tyloo, the first time we saw them, their meta was very passive. They would sit in positions at Cobblestone, you get the statue. I'll say this is the statue because it's round.
Yep. Okay, go on.
This is the B entrance.
What's this?
Okay, hang on. We'll do B entrance here for the perspective of everyone at home so the camera can see. Actually, no, I'll do it this way because then you can't see the guy. So the finger, this finger is the guy. This is the platform. Most teams, you're peeking on the other side of the statue and trying to get kills on entry. They just sit.
Oh, you didn't.
And you'd have to go all the way into Cobblestone. And, oh, now I can shoot you. And guess what? If I can't get the angle here, you're in the middle of nowhere between Chicken Coop, the entrance, and the site's positions where the CTs can play. So they forced you to commit. They did the same thing and had very good rotations and hard to read on Inferno. Now that's a map they'll be disappointed, like most teams, that it was taken out of the map pool. But they had this very passive style, and I was thinking to myself, okay, if the Eastern scene, or I say Eastern, but the Asian scene, has a different meta, and you have a natural evolution in the West, you kind of have 2 styles that are always going to counter each other, because that's what matches up. But if you bring in a third style, then you kind of get a triangle. You get teams like Na'Vi and SK at the time that were very methodical, who then go against this very passive. They're going to bleed you dry and force you, and you're going to have no information on them as much as they're going to have no information on you, which is kind of why the slow style works. So then you get the Fnatic fast style that works against Tyloo and them, but might lose to Na'Vi, and I was excited. And then now they're coming over a second time to an international event, and they do something entirely different.
Very aggressive.
All over again.
Very, like, the thing is about that team, everyone knows how much talent they've got and the skill ceiling that's available, right? The Asian gamers as a whole have always been known to be incredibly skilled mechanically. And the problem is they just couldn't keep up the teamwork aspect this time. They just had a completely different game. Na'Vi couldn't shut it down. The scoreline was 16-10 in the end. It was actually a pretty convincing result. We saw time and time again, we thought Na'Vi forced behind. They might be able to get around in here and get the momentum back in their favor, but just couldn't do it. Tyloo coming in 16-10. Against Na'Vi or Mirage. That's a hell of a result, and that kicked things off, and that set the tone for this group as well. This is probably the most exciting group in that respect. Obviously, we then had the Danish Derby coming in after that one. This was another really cool game. Like you said before, it's Heroic that have had the lion's share of the victories in the last few meetups, and we thought going into this one, okay, Astralis has been on the boot camp trying to rectify these poor results that have been happening. We kick things off. It's on Train, a good map for both teams as well, and it's going to be 16-13 in favor of Heroic. It was a really back and forth affair. And I'm going to have a look at the specifics and see if we can work out exactly what happened there. But
keep going. I like where you're going with this.
Here we go.
There you go. So 16-13, as you say.
So this is this kind of bringing me back to life in terms of what happened. We've casted a lot of CS, right?
We have.
Okay, so Modi, he had a great game overall.
He's one
of the unsung heroes, I would say, of that team.
Right. Okay, keep going.
And we had Friss with the AWP, who seemed... he was one of those players, right? That's what kept giving Astralis so many rounds in the tight clutches. He's been great at actually holding the turret style and holding back and getting the 1 or 2 kills that matter. But as soon as it comes into those really tight situations, and he's actually got to hit the close shots that really, really count, the high pressure flick shots and all that sort of stuff, that's where Friss seemed to struggle a little bit. And that's what giving Astralis a lot of rounds in their favor. It seemed that's where a lot of the clutches were coming from. And just an overall game that was so back and forth. And we'll have a look at the rest of the stats coming in here. So Kiabi, he's been called out for having pretty poor games recently for Astralis. He stepped up pretty tremendously here on Train. 23 kills for him, topped the scoreboard. But it was Vald, if you remember.
He's sick, man. He's awesome. He's going to be, if you talk about Lekr0, who we're going to get to in a moment, we've got an awesome piece on him being Sweden's next star. We've had Magic Spoy, we've got Config, we had KRB. Now we've got Valda. Danish is breeding talent at a rate that's unmatched right now.
Absolutely. Vald has had one of the sickest games I think we've seen from him in a while. Came into DreamHack Open Summer, I remember we already referenced. and he didn't even have a picture on HLTV. No one had heard of him really. He was filling in, and ever since then, he's just probably one of the most improved players, I'd say, with the likes of Lekr0. We've seen this year, potentially. Like, he finished this game with 34 kills, pretty much won it for his team in the last closing sectors. Like, every time they're coming towards that outside site, he was coming in the rotations, finding 2 or 3 kills. It was just a really tremendous performance from him. And I think this is one of the games where Astralis, they finished it off, and you could see it's just one of those classic moments where we just thought, God, not again. It's happened. The very last sectors, it all crumbles apart, and Heroic picking up the real close clutches.
And like I say, in consecutive matches, Heroics now beat Astralis. Remember, this is XSK. This is the team that was like making strides, and then fell off into absolute nowhere. I thought they were trash. I wrote them off. They beat Astralis 4 straight now. And to be fair, in Freeze, we know he's not good in the up-close positions. Train's the hardest up-close map for an AWP. There's just so many angles and ways that they can sneak up on you in the yard. Inside side, okay, there's a lot more chance for an AWP. You've got a lot more extended range on 2 choke points on the way through, and then it's very linear alleyways that you can pick down. But you get on A, and it is a little bit more difficult.
And what a fairy tale story this has been for Heroic overall. They've actually gone 2-0 after Tyloo beat Navi. Heroic go up against them on Cobblestone. The map you described Tyloo to be, like, that's their bread and butter. That's what we know them to be, the world beaters on. Heroic, very good map for them as well. They come back and win 16-13 against Tyloo. That was a really exciting prospect. The fact that Heroic, a team they're considered not top 10 at the moment, and they're the ones topping the group with the likes of Astralis and Navi here as well. And Tyloo, like I said, known to be world beaters. It's Heroic coming out on top. The definite underdogs of this group, and they're going in, and they must be feeling amazing right now, right? Like, obviously, we talk about this team like they're young kids, right? They're up and comers, right? These guys have been around for decades, and some of the biggest names in 1.6 within this team, Modi, Friss, and it's actually kind of amazing how they've rose from kind of being a tier 2 team of always on the cusp of making through qualifiers to now getting to the playoffs of a top tier event.
And you said it. I mean, Friss has been around for years and years and years, so he's probably over the moon with the results as of late.
Yeah.
We'll move swiftly along on that point. Tyloo now will play in a decider match, but to get there against Heroic, let's not forget to talk about some of the mistakes that were made, because I think they gave that game away in many regards. Economy was tight. 1 versus 3.
Yeah.
Volda last alive, walking up from mid on Cobble.
Good Lord.
They pull their knives out. Okay, then that's fine. You give away a kill with your knife out, you're expecting, okay, he's probably in connector, he might be sick. Fair enough. 1 guy makes a mistake. 2 guys do it. And then the 3rd guy, which was, I think it was somebody, is already out toward long. He hesitates. He goes, nah, I think I can still get away. I don't think he's got time. He goes to it. Now, there was something pointed out by someone on Reddit, and I want to investigate this a little bit further. They definitely made contact. They missed it by this much. The nade Volda threw would have slowed down somebody walking back into the site by about a half a second.
So what, he threw a nade towards side?
He threw a nade over stable.
Yeah.
So over stable, out to long, somebody's coming back in, nade makes contacts, tag mechanic, slows you down. They lost the round by that much.
Yeah, that makes sense, because it was one of those rounds you just think, oh, we're not going to lose this, 3v1, we don't know where he is. And the thing is, he actually watched the first player jump off from the APC, and he actually allowed him to jump and land first. Then he faced in and just has 2 on his screen, sprays them both down. All of a sudden, Tyloo have no idea what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
We think, okay, well, he's still got a romp to defuse and a player defined, but like you said, it comes in with the full defuse. The retreating player towards side alley, he's trying to save his weapon. He runs back, nade hits him, full defuse comes in, and that was actually one of the most exciting rounds. I'm not really sure anyone saw that coming, and that was actually detrimental to Tyloo as well. The fact is, the problem they have right now for me is they're constantly force buying, and I mentioned this on the cast.
Yeah.
Probably works against the Asian teams because they're so much higher skilled than the rest of them, but you're going to get punished for that eventually. Your economy's going to grind down. You're not going to win as many of those rounds as you do in Asia. You need to control the money situation.
Well, that's why you play every game and every practice match as if it's the end-all, be-all, and you're playing the best in the world. Have discipline, because if you start to make those habits against teams of lower skill, great, you close the game out faster, it's flashy, you get to do what you want, you feel the freedom, but when you come over here and try and do it, it doesn't work, and it actually is to your detriment. So they now have a match against Astralis. I was going to say Navi, but it's not. It's Astralis, which overtime, we got to talk about it. Best of 1.
What a game.
History for Astralis is every single time they lose in the groups, so too does the other favorite in the group. They get a tough game, and every single time it's happened, the team that they've been knocked out by in groups has gone on to win the tournament. Not to be this time. They beat Navi, home soil, team I thought was the favorite, and I politely got told to fuck off by Device.
Whoa,
rightfully
quite rightfully.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say that's fair considering your little tweet you had today.
It
was
is
quite
his
funny.
birthday.
It was his birthday. I think the tweet said, congratulations, at least you're going to get fucked on your birthday. And
Good luck against Na'Vi.
Good luck against Na'Vi. So that was pretty funny.
And then I said good game about that sex. So I don't know what he was mad about. I wasn't saying he was going to get wrecked by Na'Vi at all. He literally walks out of the players' room. I got out of the elevator. I walk out, and the players are kind of coming out to our right. I walk out, take a right out of the elevator, right to go outside. He's coming out. We kind of like almost bump into each other. He just looks at me and goes, "Get fucked, mate," and just walks out. Straight stone cold look. And I was like, well, all right then.
Let's talk about why Astralis in the past have been kind of renowned to be chokers, whatever you want to label it. It's because in these big games, when the chips are down and they lose some crazy moment like a 1v4 or something like that, they have a clutch that really doesn't go in their favor, they have a horrible blunder. That's when everything falls apart for this team. They can't close out games. It just takes one thing to normally tilt them off the planet, and that's it. We can normally see they get so close, and especially if it goes to overtime, especially if they have a huge lead, they let the other team get to back in the game. That's when they seem to can't really handle it, and they start turtling up, and they're not hitting their shots, and it seems to all fall apart. This time, though, is a different story, a true test of mental fortitude here. You saw them actually have these amazing highs with Dupree as some of the best form of his life, coming to bomb sites, completely destroying everyone, and it seemed like Device was having a great game as well. It was very equal, though, very back and forth. No one was really getting miles and miles ahead, but all of a sudden, Na'Vi was starting to actually get back into it, closing the gap. It came to a very equal level, and then all of a sudden, Flamey, he hits that 1 versus 4.
Yeah.
And that's the point I thought, well, that is it. That is done. Astralis, we know this is the kind of rounds that are going to just knock them out of it. And you saw them actually... It's actually, for me, Kiabi is actually one of the most level-headed players in the team. He's actually trying to raise everyone up. You watch him on the cameras and stuff like that. He doesn't get tilted by this. He's actually trying to get Dupree back in the game. He's like trying to say to him, give him the fist bump, saying, that's all right, we're going to make this. And he must be like quite an influential member in that respect. He seems like he's actually keeping the morale up and making sure they're on board with this still.
He's so naive.
Yeah.
he's so young still.
He hasn't seen as dark as it can get yet, I don't think.
That'll change.
But yeah, this is actually really cool for them to... They let us go to overtime, mental reset, and they come back and they look very strong on the T side to kick things off in overtime. It's just like... We can go to the details of the game.
Dupree was sick.
He was incredible. Like that first round of overtime, he goes into the long doors, he flashes over, finds 3 kills, and just locks it down by himself. They get the 2-1. We think, surely, I sent a tweet out saying, surely this is the one. They're going to do it. They finally made it. They've done everything they can. They just need one round here. They win the first round of CT and then close it out. And I was just like, thank God, it's finally happened. We're seeing Astralis happy at one sort of event. It's not the goal to the playoffs yet. They've still got a best of 3, but
to
still,
be fair,
this is a massive,
worse.
this is a massive milestone just to get through this first test. Right?
And a massive milestone. They say it themselves. They are their own worst enemies, and the results have been declining, not improving. And it's the same teams they're playing in playoffs. They just had the bad luck of meeting them in groups in 2016. Yeah. And I think losing here after the amount of struggles they've had as of late would be hugely hard on them. Like, I don't know where they go from there. We know that there was other roster changes rumored. I'm not going to say that that's the solution, but how do you recover? Like, that is, especially you just had a player break. You're supposed to come back refreshed. That's just like a low blow. Like, winning that game, you're right, is going to be massive for them. That's just going to revitalize them in so many ways. They've got to go against Tyloo in a best of 3, and I don't think that's going to be easy by any stretch of imagination. But Dupree steps up. Other thing, just quickly mention it, Guardian didn't have the best regulation considering it was Dust 2. Overtime he was great. And that was the scary part because I was thinking, okay, they're winning the op battle. Device, I think that it was like 21-15 in favor of Device on the op battle. And I was like, that's not going to last all game. And then as soon as it went to overtime, I was like, Guardian's going to wake up sometime, dude. It's like,
great.
This is going to be
scary.
It's great
to see Device stepping up in those big games. We know what he's capable of. He definitely has been in the past, like, tipped to be one of the world's best players, and then he has his tournament but he completely drops off and he just okay, well, there's consistency issues here. Great to see him performing in a high pressure situation. They don't want the same thing to happen again. It might be an early stage in the tournament for them. This is almost like a grand final. They want to prove they can get over these big games and take down a world beater like Na'Vi, a team that everyone thought was going to win this event. I quietly thought, okay, Na'Vi, the form we've seen them in with Simple coming in, honeymoon period, this is it. They're probably going to win their first big event, the first one they attend, and that's going to be it. They're going to start lighting up every event they go to. And that's the next point, I guess.
They didn't play their greatest CS, but they didn't play horribly. I mean, they got beat by Tyloo. They got straight up beat. It wasn't like they fell apart. They got beat by a meta we hadn't seen that countered their play to try and take middle. Hats off to Tyloo. Hard to counter them. You don't know what they're going to bring. All right, should have won the game. Yes, it was an upset win. Upsets are upsets. But it wasn't like it was anything out of the ordinary, like, holy shit, Na'Vi, what are you doing? Tyloo just beat them straight up. Fair play. Best of 1, it happens. But the game against Astralis, we mentioned Guardian being down, but he has had the game off every now and then. That was a hell of a game. That was a playoff material. That was a final material game. So as much as it looks bad that Na'Vi goes out here, and it kind of proves the point that I think Happy said to me, or maybe it was MBK on Twitter. Happy said it to me in person, though, that they're not invincible. They're not as good as everyone's making them out to be. I don't know why they think that. And they said it on the desk, too. Well, apparently they aren't. But it wasn't the worst scenario. Like the CS, it looks worse than it is.
The thing is, I'll say about Navi as a whole, obviously they're still kind of feeling out the roles. This has been a less than a month they've been together, right? It's kind of online players, all they've had to go up against. Everyone's at home in their ideal setups, and they've got the roles to a sense they haven't rotated the AWP at all. So obviously it's still Guardian and C's on the main AWP and secondary AWP roles. I would say Simple needs to come into the fray at one point there. You want him actually having that opportunity to be stepping up with the AWP, I think him on the secondary AWP, that's ideal. You still get his rifles, and you still get him with the explosive opening power that he can bring to the team. I think that's the next move for them.
I think they have to as well.
I think they want to be the world beaters. He's taken teams, not by himself, of course, but he's got them to grand finals at majors. A team which arguably has less talent than Navi has available as a whole package. And
Don't
he's been
discount Elysian Nitro package when they're on, but consistency, you're right. Yeah, definitely.
If you're talking about a whole overall package, apart from that one event potentially, Navi probably have more firepower.
Yeah.
Him coming into the team, that should be improving it. And I think we've seen when he's in his absolute best, that's when he's on the AWP role and secondary AWP role. He did the same thing with JDM, right? So that's when he's at absolute best. I think that's what needs to happen, and then we'll see them develop. And obviously, it's been such a little time. They had to have this boot camp, which looked like bullshit. It was just like some event for promotion basis.
It's totally a promotional event.
What a waste of time that seemed like. I think they played 8 maps overall in terms of what they were actually doing. So that seemed like
and then they did mix-up games.
Yeah, like what a waste of time. You've got a big event coming up. Why are you messing around with that? Like, obviously you got sponsors like we do. You have to keep the sponsors happy. You have to do this sort of stuff.
been struggling too.
And it just seems like that was when you got a big tournament coming up. Surely let's wait till December. We'll do an event like that. We'll have a fun event then. I think they'll address the roles. It's good to take losses, right? If they just came through and completely stomped this tournament and won it, you'd think, I don't have to change anything. Everything's brilliant. Taking some losses at a new team, that's a good thing. You can't just expect everything to be perfect from the start, right? If you just rely on your individual players and everything goes well, as you're having a great tournament, it's good to take these losses. You can go back and assess, and this will be the true test of Navi now, whether they can control this new addition. We know he's a fiery character, Simple. He seems like he's firmly on a leash, though. He seems like he's matured a lot just by coming into this team.
I think he just respects them. I've said it from the offset. It's a respect thing. He's not going to mess with his dream.
I didn't see him rage, though, once. I didn't see him like shaking his head or going, oh, what the hell's going on? Like, even when they lost, he was like a good sport about it.
Just straight respect or disrespect to the other teams he's been on, depending on how you look at it. I mean, that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
Did seem that I was cheering, give Flamey a nice high five after that one before.
That was quite a nice moment.
Yeah, that's classic Simple, isn't it?
I think Starladder took a pause straight after that. And he's like,
So
he's got out of his chair and it's like, yes, let's go.
And Astralis, you touched on it, Astralis did say that one before was the breaking point, and they were surprised. Well, they weren't surprised, but they had to rally back from it. Last group, we'll be quick about it, because we've, again, got the Lekr0 documentary coming up just after the intermission, and there's a few little fine points I want to touch on just in terms of rule set for this event. Vici, Cyberzen, Cloud9, Envious, Virtus Pro. Cloud9, Envious we saw yesterday. The other opening match was actually just played. Interesting result there. Cloud9, I would say top of the group right now in terms of firepower. They're playing great. Skadoodle destroyed Kenny S in a 1-versus-1 battle on Cobblestone. And Cloud9's their firepower, straightforward execution, but it was brutal. It was honest. It went down drop. They won their duels, and they took B site and A site when they wanted it, but mostly B site on Cobblestone time and time again.
Automatic, what a signing that's been.
Yeah.
They've always been a team that's got some real talented individuals. Skadoodle, nothing, for example, but him coming into the fray as well. We could talk about this all day, but Slemmy was the original in-game leader and the latest addition for Cloud9. He's been replaced by Automatic. Automatic brings a new level of depth, I think, something they didn't have before. Someone that can win rounds single-handedly just by brute force, getting himself in towards bomb sites. We saw it on Cobble time and time again against Envious. He's just going into the upper platform, running in by himself. A couple of flashbangs, obviously teamwork. They're getting him into these positions, but he's finding 4 frags and are very impressive as well. You would never see that from Slemmy. Not to say he's a bad player, that's just not his style. And he wasn't going to win you rounds single-handedly. He was kind of the brains behind the operation and getting them into a kind of formation and kind of like giving this is the tools you need to win rounds. And it was working to some extent, but since Automatic's come in, that's when they've really stepped up their game. Nothing said he's kind of the in-game leader. Oh no, Stewie's in-game leading now. They're still using Slemmy's foundations and Nothing's original tactics. They've kind of changed some of the in-game leaders.
Just implementing. And also I've heard Automatic does bring a little bit to that. You got to wonder when the tactical game catches up with them. It could be a bit of another honeymoon phase right now.
Yeah.
I mean, they're 14-0 in Pro League in North America. They're pretty much already written the ticket to Sao Paulo. I think pretty much that's done. But you got to wonder where this lack of tactics, straight-up style of play eventually catches them out, if it catches them out. So I hope it can continue for them. But it could be another 2015 where kind of people overlooked them, and then all of a sudden they go, okay, hang on, let's just watch a demo and figure it out.
Let's also not forget Envious' performance in this Cobble game. This is where Envious on the CT side, they look like they forgot the fundamentals of the setup,
that's true.
Right?
They were shit.
So they used to, on this map, they they had some very interesting results. It was up and down for sure on Cobble, but the original setup they had was Kenny S by himself on the A side with the AWP, and he was actually able to hold his own. And that's the idea, right? You have an AWP by himself. If you think it's going to be a B side, and at least Kenny can find 1 or 2 kills, and he can actually call for rotations and hold them off. They kind of changed that up this team. So Kenny's primarily focusing towards the B side, quite deep in it as well. You've got Apex almost alone every single time towards long A. He's either in danger or long A by himself, and he was having a really rough time actually holding off Cloud9 at all there. The team like Cloud9 were actually completely shutting A down every single time they went there, splitting between that site as well. And we saw Happy. Oh god, Happy's play on this map especially was a little bit disappointing. They lost so many rounds where he's going in for those.
If I was going fishing, man, I'd catch the biggest fish in the fucking sea with that bait.
The thing, it's not necessarily the bait, right? It's just knowing when to do it. That bait can be very successful, right? Like, there's no problem with that. I'd actually think he gets a bit too much stick for that setup. It's when you're up against full ecos and you know it. You know you can read the economy, right? And he's still doing that play where he's potentially just giving away an AK. Everyone knows he's to be lurking towards drop down, right? His teammates are going towards A. There's some confusion. There's a bit of a crossfire walking to the CT ones. Equal exchanges, right? Happy comes lurking and his teammates are just having a horrible time over there. He comes running in as the time's running out. He gives away an AK. On those sort of rounds, you want to make sure you're at least using the buddy system, if not all together, right? And he just needs to learn when to control those situations, when he should be doing the bait or the lurk, whatever you want to call it. And then that's how they can avoid those sort of rounds. Cloud9 got back into the game time and time again, just through actually reading what he was going to do. And it seems like it's definitely a tactic they can throw in there every now and then, just implementing it at the right time. That was a bit of a shit show overall from MVS. Obviously, they got 6 here as well. Let's not forget. Let's not
true.
Let's not say it's the full MVS. I don't think you can blame the kind of stuff they were doing, though,
just
purely
bring up the Twitch right now and let's see where they're at, because they are playing right now against Virtus Pro. Decider match, best of 1.
On Cobble as well against VP. 13-7.
Best of 1 elimination match.
So they've completely sorted themselves out. VP have already lost to Vici. So this is actually VP and Navi going out in the group stages in dead last place. Can you imagine? VP after just winning E-League as well.
That would be Navi and VP gone. SK's not here. Good day, ES Force. Bye-bye.
This is nuts. We won't dwell on this too much. Obviously, it's not a live. This is more.
Yeah, it's not what we're here for. But I mean, it's interesting. It's interesting.
It's definitely
Isn't
interesting.
that neat?
Well,
That's a neat point, Henry.
I love these kind of events where there's actually not just the same old teams
Straightforward,
winning.
yeah,
We've come back from a break. We've got lineup changes. We've got
2016 has been the least predictable year of all. Like, I remember last year, analysts were getting like 70% of the predictions right. This year, I think they're like 20%.
It's impossible. Like, you can say every time Paul on this event alone is just like, well, what do you think? And it's just like, I'll just give you a name. Like, it doesn't, like, basically the analyst test, the point of it is to kind of give you an insight as to how a team plays, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, how they're kind of approaching every single map. To give a prediction, right, it's so difficult in this current climate. So, yeah, so many roster changes. It's the first LAN since the break. We don't really know what's going to happen, right? We can give you our best idea, but it doesn't mean it's going to be, even if all the analysts think one thing's going to happen, there's a very good chance it not necessarily will. Because obviously we have pistol rounds, we have an economy system, teams are not necessarily in the best form right now, so it's difficult to work out where it's going to go, especially with this unknown quantity of the Asian teams coming in. We don't get to watch them. Maybe once or twice a year we get to see them, right? And they're thrown into the mix now. You never know what to expect. You don't know how that's going to kind of synergize with the European style, and it's always very exciting. This is what I love about CS, though, right? When we get to this stage where everything's kind of reset, everyone's been shuffling, that's when the CS is interesting again.
I think we make a team. I think now's the time.
Who would be in it?
Me, you, that bald guy from North America.
The creamy one.
He's pretty creamy. Let's go in throw in that Serbian assassin guy, and Ken Yang.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
He's on the top. He's on the top of the subreddit right now. He's got a wicked 1.6 shirt. I think Ken Yang's the guy.
Excellent.
I think he's in, and
right.
I'll never want to go home.
Well, that kind of runs out the groups now. Group
You didn't get that one, did you? I don't want to go home.
Oh, no. Okay.
There's a name of a drink in Korea that absolutely wrecked me.
Why don't you tell the stories? It's kind of a show. You can have a look.
Sure. So, yeah, we're in Korea. We go out. There's 2 drinks. One's called Brain Hammer, and the other one's called I Don't Want to Go Home. And Can, the first thing he tells me is, look, you can have a few drinks, you can warm up to it, but this drink, you can have one of them a night. That's it. And when you do it, that's you're pretty much done. Like, that's your night spent. So drink responsibly is basically what he says to me. Like, all right, you can pick one or the other. So I'm like, whatever. I'm not going to do them anyway. I'm just sitting there chilling, a couple vodka, and you know what? I go, yeah, fuck it. Give me a Brain Hammer. And it's basically a mix of Zambuca 151. I can't remember. Anyway, lit on fire. You do it through a straw. It's 2 shots. And I'm like, all right, that didn't taste that great. but it wasn't bad. It was only 2 shots, whatever. And I'm like, you know what? Give me the I don't want to go home. Fuck it. I don't want to go home is like a vat like this big with alcohol about that deep. And as you're drinking it through a straw, it's on fire again, and they're pouring 6 shots into it of whatever else. So it's like peach schnapps with 6 shots, and you just go. And I remember doing it and starting just going, holy fuck, oh fuck, oh. And then by the end of it, I was wrecked. Apparently, I started dancing on the bar for another 2 hours. They called me Dancing King when I went back there. Next day, thankfully we had a late call time, woke up at the hotel again back in Gangnam, and the last thing I remember is being with, I won't say who, but potentially going into a brothel and stopping at the door and going,
Christ,
no.
I didn't think we were going to this much detail.
Well, you asked for the story.
Wasn't me.
You asked for the
disclosure.
story. You weren't there, oddly enough. But we're like walking into the brothel door, and I remember having this one moment of, I am way too fucked for this. This is not where I want to be. Turned around and just got in the cab. And I remember the 2 people looking like, where'd he go? And I just like, get in the cab, passed out. I'm in Gangnam. No one speaks English. And somehow I got all the way across Seoul, Korea, a city of 24 million people metro-wide, and woke up in the hotel the next day. Went for a walk, went to the park the next day, and almost passed out there, almost passed out during the cast. I was shaking for like 2 days.
I think we both
And
looked
I don't
so
wanna
ill
go
by
home.
an event like that. Then we were just drinking every night.
They warned
Like,
me. They did warn me.
Yeah, that's one event. Definitely, I love the city, love the time there, but it was a little bit too much in terms of you wanted to make the most of it and explore the city every night, but it did almost kill us. I'm not going to lie. But anyway, Matthew, that does run on group. That's kind of the Starladder special done. It's still ongoing, right?
Vici
This is only day 2.
VP is the other big one that just happened. You guys will know as much about that game as we did. We were stuck in traffic. We walked into the arena. They've got it on a big screen here. I caught the tail end of it, but there wasn't really much to report from what I could see.
Headline is, though, Envious about to, yep, there it is, 15-8. They're about to knock VP out of the tournament.
Navi and VP both, that's 2 of the top 3 in my opinion. Again, not where the ratings sit right now, but that's 2 of the top 3 teams in the world.
In last place. So other teams are going to drop out.
Get fucked.
We're going to have Tyler or Astralis going as well, but this is last place. This is the early stages of Group D, but there it is. Interesting. Just considering all the moments, it's Cobble as well. For all the points we just brought up about Envious, he must have done some hard work in the last day or so because this looks much more promising. VP on the T's out of Cobble as well. They're very good at it. So amazing. But Matthew, that's probably started done for now. Keep your eyes on it. It's still ongoing. We'll be casting that from tomorrow. It's been a really cool tournament. It's one of my favorite ones to do. It's actually really nice people, good event, good country. Pretty cheap here. I like it.
Dude, I
Love
really
Ukraine.
like. I have to say, like a lot of the event. First off, the best after parties. Korea was good just because it was good at partying because we'd never been there as much. But the best after parties in esports are in Ukraine. Everyone just loves to have a good time. They're all about it. Alcohol is pretty affordable and they're all very hospitable. They gave us the studio to work in, and we've had Tom here shooting film, and they don't care. He just walks around and does whatever he wants. Whereas other events are a little more strict about that stuff and the media exposure. So I really like coming to Kiev. It's got very crisp lighting too, and as a former, I can't really say I am anymore. I haven't done enough, but former photographer, I always look at light quality, and the light quality here is so fucking crisp all day. It's kind of cool.
Lovely stuff. Well, that's Starladder for you. But Mats,
2 things I want to touch on before we go to intermission.
go on.
Very quickly. 1, 16K overtimes.
Okay.
I don't mind it necessarily on every map. We saw it today with Na'Vi and Astralis. Auto Snipers, oddly enough, didn't come out on the T side. I think on other maps it can work, but Dust 2, it's exploitable. I said this to the Starladder admins. We were sitting there talking about it. You can auto snipe through those doors nonstop, relentlessly. We've seen it work time and time again. You're getting a reset every single round, so it's not even the 3rd round if you win anymore with this new format. And Dust 2, all other maps I think an improvement. There it is. Envy just knocked them out. That's crazy. But Dust 2, you can make that overpowered. Now we saw CT side instead, and they still managed to pick up that round. Navi, what are your thoughts quickly?
So the only map it's really broken on, in my opinion, is Dust 2. That's when we have a serious problem. Other maps, it's not such a huge deal. Obviously, the mentality behind the overtime is you want to have 6 rounds that are purely based down to skill, right? So I think you should have a full bite every single round. I think that's the idea of the overtime. That's what we want to see. Who's the best team while fully equipped? No holds barred. It's literally, that's it. You're playing with everything, right? That's the point of the overtime. It's not about controlling that side of the game. So I don't mind the 16K rule as a set. It just, we need to kind of put some groundwork down there to say, on Dust 2, you can't buy 5 auto snipers and completely wreck everyone through the mid doors, because that's not going to work, because it means you can just do that, win a round, and then you've got 5 auto snipers, drop them, you know you're going to have money for the next round anyway, it's going to be 3 rounds, and that's when it's broken. So all we need to do is say, you're limited to 1 auto sniper per round in overtime. You can only buy 1 around, right? And I think that kind of sorts it. Because you can't just ban a weapon. Obviously, it is viable in situations, but
you've like in other games, like in Pro Mod, you did ban a weapon. Basically, you can only have 1 sniper in COD for Pro Mod.
So if you just say you're limited to 1 auto sniper per round,
or just go 8K.
Well, that means you have to reset every single round, right?
They are resetting at 16k every single round.
Oh, really? So you get,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
get a
that's what
fresh
I'm saying.
16k.
It's
Oh, if you
fresh-
can do
fresh-
that, then that's fine. Yeah. As
yeah,
long as you
it's
get you a full buy
reset.
and you can't drop it. Yeah, I didn't know it did that.
I'm pretty sure. I'm 99% sure because they bought auto sniper second round. I'm pretty sure it's a reset every single round. There's no saving. That's why they're doing it. They don't want to have that third round save crap in overtime.
Okay.
Or
I thought
force.
he was putting in 16k from the start, and then it went.
Yeah, I think it was every single round.
So if they reset every time.
The
Then
problem is we couldn't see the money on stream because they've got so much camera stuff here. I didn't actually get a chance. But from what I understood of the broken English that was being spoken next to me, it's every round. If I'm wrong, let us know. But either way, I mean, it does.
the resets, I didn't even know that was possible.
Yeah.
But then if it's doing that, then still you're gonna have the same problem, right? Because if you win the round with 5 players alive, you can still justify buying 5 auto snipers, dropping your AKs, and picking them up again. You'll still have enough for a buy next round.
Second thing that I wanted to touch on, NIP's mentality of not bringing Threat, whether or not it's true what GetRight said that he's got studying. I know Threat is pretty committed to school.
Take what they say with a pinch of salt most of the time on camera, right? So.
Of course. And GetRight said something along the lines of Facebook, oh, he's not here because he's studying. But then in the interview we saw with Exist, they said, look, we're electing not to bring him. We want to get into this more regimented system now where he provides me with strats, I implement them. We're practicing as if this is a Valve major and if this is ESL1 New York. Do more teams need to take that approach now? How does this change? Because Raben comes in tomorrow. We saw FaZe struggling without him. Starix was still behind Na'Vi. By the way, fastest LAN ever. VP just showed up and played 2 maps in under an hour and a half, and they're gone already.
Yeah, amazing. See,
is that a bad thing? You have a terrible... I'll do that in a second. Continue the point.
So the thing is for me, like, why would you not have Threat here? Like, it's not your full team anyway. You want to give yourself the best possible chance of winning this. You're allowed to use the coach. Other teams are going to be doing it as well. It's not like you're practicing your main lineup. Surely you want him here to actually give you the best possible chance to kind of control everything that's going on. You've got a bit of a wild card of Michael Early here. It doesn't really make sense not to have him. Surely you're going to use every single strength you can possibly get, every sort of advantage you can have here, considering the circumstance. If he is studying, that's fair enough, but let's not say we're getting used to it. Obviously, that's viable as well. It makes sense, but if it's not your full lineup, you're allowed to use him. I'd say this event, if anything, let's make sure we get to playoffs, use him as much as possible. Let's guarantee it. Zonic, he's deep in there as a coach system. We've got StarX calling for Na'Vi as well. Yeah, I see what you mean. But he was calling for them as well. So obviously that's a new lineup. One player changed. They want to keep using it. They want to take every advantage they can possibly get at this sort of event. They'll have time to implement that idea going forward. But I think it just doesn't really make sense. Why are you changing that when you have got your full lineup? It doesn't really benefit. You're going to have to do it all over again when Pick comes back, you know.
Format for VP, just quickly, back-to-back, have a poor first game, no time to reset and go into a second. That's potentially detrimental.
Cell format, everyone knows it. It's like you have to have a...
But most teams have a break between their maps.
Oh, I think that's a benefit to you, if anything. You just get to keep the same setup. You should be warmed up. You don't have to reset and move around.
Just sometimes if you're in that, we're not on it, you don't get a time to go walk away and shake out the jitters.
I think it was because of them. They had to
They did,
have
yeah,
their
it was
setup.
media rights for Epicenter.
Yeah,
just curious quickly. All right, with that, guys, look, we're going to take our short intermission. As always, when we come back, we will reveal a lovely documentary with potentially who could become the new face of Swedish Counter-Strike. He's made a move all the way through from FPL, matchmaking, and now he's on Fnatic. It's going to be Lekr0 when we get back. Well, there you go. We rushed Catwalk, we beat Na'Vi, and then we knocked VP into the lower game where they lost as well. So we're back. I did go full Asian CS, and we've got something very cool coming up.
We do. Something very interesting indeed. There's a young superstar that began his journey in the professional CSGO scene, actually in the FPL. His name is Lekr0. He was one of the newest signings for Godsent originally. Yes. Now made his way over to Fnatic. And we thought it'd be a really cool idea if we could be the first ones ever to have a video interview of him. We actually went out for lunch with him, got to know him, kind of work out what he's all about.
Could you say drop the bomb, pop the cherry?
I think you could say that, I think that'd be an accurate way to describe our relationship with him there in Sweden. But yes, without further ado, this is a documentary we did on Lekr0. He's a really nice guy, an upcoming talent. You're going to see a lot of him from this year joining the Fnatic lineup.
I'd say it's announced.
And let's get into it, shall we?
Yeah, let's do it. So awesome interview. You guys were there. Take it away. You already did this. Go ahead.
Sweden in 1.6 it was a hell. It took me like 3 years personally to get into a top team when I actually got recognized. And it's always been like a closed community in a way. We have a lot of talent, even though we have a lot of good players. We probably have even more that we have never actually seen. For example, Lekr0.
Before Counter-Strike, I was in school. I was studying with computers and nature science, and after that I got a job at a grocery store. I was playing 1.6 when I was really small. My older brother started with 1.6, and at the beginning my mom told me not to play because there was blood and shooting and it was violent, but it didn't stop me. I was always worried, what am I gonna do, what am I gonna work with? I had no plan at all. Before, when I went to school, I played a lot of Face It, and it was both because I was fun, winning points, and it was winning money. But I had no thoughts of being a professional player, so I just played a lot, and later on I wanted to qualify for the FPL, so I played even more. I never got the chance to qualify for FPL, and I always failed.
He was just a guy who played matchmaking and randomly played with Prolix, and then Prolix picked it up, which is a wonderful story if you ask me.
Twist recognized me, saying that Olaf Meister and all the big Fnatic players all were annoyed playing against me, because sometimes I just wrecked them. Twist told the others in the team that he wanted to try me out. The others had others in question that they were gonna try out, but he was like, try this guy out first. And after that, they didn't have any more trials. I was always watching the majors and watching the professional games, seeing the top tier Fnatic, NIP. I was a fan in the beginning. Later on, when I could play with them, I was really encouraged and motivated to become the best. DreamHack Mame was the biggest event I had been to. That was like the first debut I had and started to build a name for myself. I've always been a player that I don't feel scared playing against anyone. I just feel like more motivated to play against a better team. And that's because I want to be the best in the end, and you have to beat the best to be the best.
He seems to have the hunger that many others don't really have, and I think if they give him enough time, he's going to be a top player, probably one of the biggest stars in Sweden. It's a fun time that people actually change their mind a little bit and try to bring in a lot of new talents and see how it goes.
As a Fnatic player of now and playing with two previous Fnatic players, our goal is going to pretty much be win the major. I think going in with confidence is going to be the best thing we can do, and just aim for the top right away. When I decided to quit my job to play CS, I didn't really tell my parents because I knew that they wouldn't like it. And instead, I proved them later on that when I got into a big tournament, they saw for themselves that this could be pretty big.
Well, there we have it.
There you go. Lekr0, I mean, that's a very cool story, I have to say, and it's very cool that we were able to sit down and talk to him first and foremost before anyone else. Coming through the ranks is basically, I don't want to put it this way, but a nobody in terms of the competitive scene. Matchmaking, a little bit of FPL trial and error and getting through, and suddenly he's on Fnatic within a, what, 6-7 months span?
Quite an inspiring story. I guess if you look back to it, that's how we all began when we were all pro players. I guess you kind of noted that he just finished school, kind of at a loose end, didn't really have anything going on in his life. He said he got a job at a grocery store, a lot of pressure from his parents, didn't really understand the whole gaming thing, wasn't really getting a break there. He comes and gets into FPL, right? Obviously a very good CS player at this point, just playing for fun. He said, okay, I'm just making a bit of money from this, trying to see what's available, see if I can make like something out of it. And he got into some very low-end Swedish teams, nothing too special. And then all of a sudden he gets picked up, he gets spotted by Twist on FPL. And then all of a sudden it all comes together, and it kind of, it's quite a cool story. The one thing I will say about that as well, you can't just dedicate your life to CS and you're going to make it as a pro.
Yes, you can do it. I want
to make a disclosure
CS 12
out there.
hours a day.
It takes a lot of talent out there. Not everyone possesses it. You can't just play this one game. And
it's an easy game, guys. It's pretty easy.
It's a high-risk move, and it's one that doesn't always pay off. This is a pretty brutal world, the pro CS level. Just because he's please do not dedicate your life to CS. Go to school. Make
Actually,
sure you do all your goals
what you
first.
should do is just go try out for the Face It Casters, and you probably have a better chance.
We'll touch on that in a minute, actually. But let's finish this one off. I think it's I just want to put that disclosure out. Whenever people ask me about casting, that's what I say as well. Yeah, sure, you can try and make it as a hobby, but do not throw your life at it unless you have some serious talent. You really, really believe in it. But yeah, he's an unbelievable talent in Swedish CS right now. We saw him.
I rate him highly. I think he's a huge addition to the Fnatic squad. Everyone was talking about the twist going over, but then, what's Venton and what's Lekr0 doing? You just hold your tongue on that one. He's a talent that's underrated.
Under the kind of leadership and guidance of Olofmeister and Dennis as well, I think that lineup's going to bring something to the table. I think it was a good move from them. They're not throwing themselves into the deep end of every single event and every qualifier. They're working out what's a good strategic move for them going forward. And I think that's really cool. It's the first time he's ever been in front of a camera. That's kind of because he's in Fnatic now and he's never done a video interview before. And he's in one of the biggest organizations in the world. So a lot to come from this guy. We wanted to kind of catch up with him. You saw Get Right as well, giving his opinion on him. He obviously highly rates him. You can't get much higher praise than one of the all-time greatest CS players of all time, right? So that's really cool to see him kind of enjoying it as well. We will have more pieces coming out from Get Right. We actually did a standalone interview with him as well, and we kind of touched on the more general kind of topics of CS. So that's going to be coming in a few weeks. We've got lots of content kind of building.
Lots of content. 2 shows left and tons of content. So lots of stuff going to be stockpiled as well. It's just going to get better and better when we move forward with the show.
Yeah.
And I just to really drive it home, I think Lekr0 at Malmo really had a breakthrough performance. Everyone was talking about Schneider at that particular event and Twist, but Lekr0 was quietly confident. And in the game, it was the quarterfinal, not the game against NIP. He was solid in so many aspects, and he does have very good mechanics and fundamentals, which is nice to see. Now they just build the game sense into him, let him really develop with the team, and he's gonna be a hell of a force.
Yep, absolutely. More to come from him, and keep your
and
eyes
with Disco
peeled.
Doppler and the Epsilon guys, now we're seeing a changing of the guard. Maybe there is some young talent.
Well, yeah, Get Right explained in that video the fact that the Swedish CSGO scene has kind of been difficult to break into elitist at some points, and Get Right even struggled to get to where he is now because he was
Get Right's not that good, let's be honest.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, right? Towards when he was just breaking in there, like no one wanted to give him a chance, and then when he finally did get it, you can see where he ended up. It's all about kind of nurturing these young talent and actually allowing them to prove themselves at these big events, and Fnatic are definitely doing that. Everyone says Godsend got the better out of this exchange, but I think Fnatic, with players like Olof and Dennis at the helm and kind of guiding these young guys and how to be world-class players, very talented young individuals, that could be a very interesting prospect indeed. So,
all right.
Yeah, you've got something cool.
Friends, Romans, and countrymen, lend me your ear. This is something we've kind of known about him and heard hints of for a while. I didn't expect the press release to go live today. It just has, and this will be the talk of the town for weeks. There'll be speculation, there'll be skepticism, there will be essentially everything that the Reddit drama queens love to bring to the table without knowing much. Some of that sort of preemptively comes on the back of WESA and what the hell do they do, and implementation of leagues and teams and conflict of interest and ES Force and who's involved in what. We had the League of Legends scandal recently with Fnatic and G2 involved with Lars, and now we've got this organization, this professional, what's the official name? Professional
PEA.
Yeah, PEA, whatever. But it's Professional Esports Association of North American branded teams. And part of me thinks 2 things on this. I don't know the whole gist of what's going on behind it. The simple facts are this. It's 7 NA teams to start off, $500,000 a season, $1 million total for North American-based leagues. I won't speak too much beyond that. I know who's going to be in charge in the production of it. It's going to be excellent in that sense. And it's going to be there to rival things like E-League and ESL. And I think this is a bit of a response from North American organizations who felt slighted by WESA. I'm speculating on this, but you remember there were a number of those teams saying, oh, hold on, you're saying you've got the pedigree and you've got the numbers in the organizations you get in, but then we see the inner circle and it's ES Force, it's ESL, it's all kinds of tied strings and not a lot of the outside sources of, it's the classic CS lineups. But where's the Cloud9? Where's the TSM, et cetera, et cetera? Well, now they've done this, they've responded, and North America really has a league that is very much theirs. So I guess carry on, and I'll go through the press release.
How does this resolve with terms of they've obviously got ties with Pro League, they've got ties with ECS already. How does this fit in? Obviously, the calendar's so full already. Does it fit in the off season of these two leagues? It tries to fit around it, or they just straight up competing, saying we're not going to be part of these next season. We'll finish off what we're currently contractually obliged to, and then we're going to focus on our own American league and do that. But presumably that doesn't really make sense, right? Because ECS and Pro League, they're global. You get to play against the European teams as well. This sounds like it's very NA focused, and it'll just be the top NA teams competing in a.
Well, this is the thing, and as a response, if you look at Europe and you look at WESA, and you would think, okay, those organizations are bound to it. There's some stability in that, regardless of conflict of interest. You would think there's going to be something there. This might create a divide where, does ESL North America suddenly lose rapport? Do they kind of dissolve? All the North American teams start to favor this league, and then Europe stays with this, and we get two separate leagues, and then it kind of puts. I'm not necessarily opposed to that because it takes away the saturation. We don't get a world final all the time, which is better because then we get to the majors, and it's like, whoa, hang on, continental divide.
That's true.
That could be cool if that happens. That could be very cool.
That's actually a very good point. That's kind of what we have with traditional sports, right? You don't just have. You don't have Manchester United, Real Madrid playing against each other every weekend at every single event, right? You have this build-up at their own regional leagues, and they build up and they find out who's the very best in that league. And you do it for a whole season, and then at the very end of the year, we have this one big event, like the Champions League in football, right? Let's use that as an example. That's when they finally come up and test against each other, and that's when you see the world's best team from all over the world compete, and there's one truly major tournament that's going to be the undisputed champions of the world. There's one of them a year. And that could be a really interesting idea, right? So you kind of battle out in your own regions, work out who the true champions are. They go into this absolute final towards the end, and you kind of have a setup like that.
Well, that's for Valve. I think that's a dream situation. Now the majors have a new level of relevance that's apart from prize money and production. That is the World Championships.
That's the problem with CS right now. Obviously, it's an online game, so the whole of Europe can easily play against each other. Obviously, it's not the same where you can't play online against North America, but still, we have a major event pretty much every weekend in the regular season, right? And we'll have like a big event at least. We'll have like at least a 100K tournament once or twice a week. Well, once every couple of weeks, right? And that means the NA teams are going to be flying over. They'll have a huge stint in Europe. They'll probably stay here for a couple of months, just going from event to event to event to event. And it kind of takes away that hype a little bit. Like every event feels like a stadium event now, and there's always massive amounts of prize money, same team competing. It does get a little bit stale in that respect.
Very stale.
Right now, it's very exciting because we have all the lineup changes. It's great to see who's the best, but it's not like it's super hype every single time. It's like, oh, it's this time of year we get to see this big event. Obviously, Valve have taken out one of the majors this time. We only have two this year, which is, I guess, for me, like that kind of makes sense, right? Like we had two this year; they're both pretty sick, and then you even had another one in, and it just feels like, oh, it's another major. Like Cologne, to some extent, didn't have the same magic it did in 2015. It felt like it was still a good event. It was still exactly the same, but it's just something missing. It didn't have that same special feeling, you know?
I completely agree, and I think saturation, people say bullshit, saturation doesn't exist. Fuck off, it certainly does. I think we're exhausted, the players are exhausted, and now if your team loses, great, Na'Vi just lost this tournament. As a Na'Vi fan, do you give a shit? Because they're going to play again in a week. It's not 2 months down the line. God, our pride was lost. I really want to see. I got to tune in to the next event. It's whatever. Fuck it. I'll see them in a week. And that's a huge problem. And not only that, people are just sick of watching in general in most cases. Or I missed that event. Whatever. There's another one. So it spreads the numbers out in that sense. And that's there's more CS and more prize money and more job opportunity for guys like us. But for advertisers, the bigger the numbers, the better. If you spread those numbers out, it's you may think, okay, there's more advertising, but then it's just dilution for them as well. You want to hit one solid campaign that hits everyone and targets everyone. Frequency and reach are the two things they talk about in advertising. How frequently can you reach people? So obviously the frequency's gone up, but the reach has gone significantly down. And if you can combine the two, that's where very basic idea of marketing.
So it sounds like you're quite pro for this idea of this American.
Well, okay, hang on, because I'm pro for the idea of a continental divide having a world championship that's not necessarily an official in that sense, but you get majors that get relevancy. Let me just read a few. Let's step back. Let's just talk about this Professional Esports Association at its bare bones, because we said ESL and perhaps a response to WISA, but the other league that stands in this, I don't think E-League is going to be too affected. Everyone wants the numbers. That league seems very professionally run. There's a structure involved in it. Turner's got all kinds of funding in other ways. They don't need CS. I don't think we need them, but it's one of those relationships where they're not going to bend over backwards because they need CS, right? It's going to be done right. And I think that the teams are really enjoying that. The organizations have spots. It seems fair representation. There's a qualification. That seems all fine. ECS, Facet's league. Okay? Faceit came in and said, Twitch came in and said that we're going to support this league. We're going to be on board with it. But at the same time, I wasn't convinced in all the support that they get. Now, I get what they were trying to do. it was announced a little bit late, and I think it was the right idea. They said the same thing. Players have representation on the board. So there's a players committee. The teams have a board, and they're all talking together. There's residual ownership where, league fees, there's distribution revenue, et cetera, et cetera. There's percentages in it. But it just seemed like a side league at times because of the way it was promoted. And I think NA had issues last year. There was a lot of roster changes. It wouldn't surprise me if that league also struggles because of this. And that's the third one in it. But let's look just quickly before we get to that. 2 quotes. The PEA represents something new in esports, an association of top teams running their own league and sharing profits and the decision-making with players. There you go. That's the copy of the model. That seems to be the standard right now. Let's at least put it outwardly that players have a say. Now, we know the players, after the whole coaching thing, tried to bind together and do something. If these leagues create structure, then a union can form. I talked to a sports agent very seriously about this. That quote, by the way, did come from the PEA commissioner, which is Jason Katz. I talked to a sports agent, and he said, how the hell do you make a union? I said, what do you mean? Like, they just bind together. He said, how the hell do you make a union if there's no stability? A union in this league doesn't mean shit in this league, and it's different teams here than here. Who's involved in the union? Who's not? How do you enforce it when there's different rule sets? If we get some stability, a union could come to light. You're looking at something.
No, it's just the name Jason Katz. I'm pretty sure he was involved in CGS. It's just interesting to see his name coming back.
Thoughts on that?
Well, it's such a long time ago. I can't even remember what his role was, so it'd be me just speculating and trying to remember something happened 10 years ago.
I mean, I know Jason Lake's involved in this, and he was quite adamant with his tweet. As well as that, I'll bring that up and just talk about the people that are in that tweet and just identify them for people. But
it's the thing, right? So overall, right? This has literally just been announced. I'd have to look into the actual details as to what this actually means going forward. What's their standing? Like you said, it's a response to what we've seen from Pro League, E-League, ECS. Obviously, very similar model to those kind of leagues. More so towards ECS and Pro League when you get the player revenue and all that sort of stuff. For me, the biggest mistake Pro League have made, they say they're looking out for the players, but there have been a lot of instances where we've had some horrible PR moves. Obviously, we discussed that whole voting system of who's going to be in it. That's the kind of stuff that's going to get you some horrible press, right? And it just seems like, there'll be some horrible press, but we'll bounce back in a couple of weeks. Everyone will forget about it and we'll move on. And I guess that can be frustrating for teams at times, and there's obviously been a lot of decisions in terms of who gets through to what, and I'm not sure. I guess at this point, this league wants to do the same thing as what these guys are doing, but they want to do it properly. They want to make sure everyone's kind of involved and kind of all on the same page, and it's not like ESL can just say, well, we've made this rule, we've kind of bent this rule to make it work for us actually. This actually won't happen in this kind of league. Every team's going to have someone on the board actually officially and kind of come together and make sure those decisions can't be made by one governing body, right? Everyone's got an input to how it should be going down. That's my understanding of this.
Right. Well, and that's the outward projection.
Yeah.
You always have to consider that. Now, I'm interested to know that Jason Katz is not a name that I'm familiar with. I'm sure there'll be people digging at it, but I'm curious as his CGS relationship. It means he's got some involvement in CS, but they also were a floor that fell out from under the scene and kind of swept the rug out from under us and killed it for a little bit. Not they intended to do so, but they changed so much. They made everyone buy into this league that failed, and it caused a lot of problems. So, I don't know. I don't know the political implications there.
Okay,
but
so he was vice president in gaming and vice president in global marketing. So yeah, that was my understanding. He was involved in like the business side of it and kind of making the decisions of how it went down. Obviously, CGS was such a shit show overall. You can't.
Well, that's the concerning factor.
I can't even speculate whether there's anything to do with him. I have no idea what that role means. But that whole thing was a complete nightmare.
Well, global marketing is the outward reach, which is at least if he has a marketing experience, he's probably not involved in the decisions internally. But learn from the mistakes. Maybe that's a good thing outwardly.
But the fact he was involved in it, he could see how it went horribly wrong, and he can bounce back and work out what's going forward. But
let's hope it's not just a cash grab for him.
He's been esports. That's another thing. That's where I knew him from as well. He worked for Riot Games as esports senior management. He was probably the guy in charge of the esports.
I'm sure Richard Lewis is turning on that one.
I think this is a name Richard likes. I'm not sure. I remember him speaking about it in the past, so I couldn't.
Well, I'm sure there'll be a video released by him in due time.
And he was chief operating officer at Azubu as well. So he's got lots of kind of experience on all these different pies and lots of different fields within esports.
And some, there's no question.
Obviously he probably knows what he's doing, and he seems to be at the helm of all of this. And we've just had this announced. I'm sure.
From my understanding as well, that the North American teams were looking to do this, so they probably sought someone out. So it's not like this guy's at the helm and suddenly couldn't controversial. He was probably sought out by them, and it might have been a contact Jason had from CGS days or whatnot. That's another thing. Complexity is definitely trying to get into multiple situations. They got themselves into E-League quite convincingly with the organization. The boycott at the start of the year for ESL was a hint for me that this was. I mean, we knew at the time that it was happening, but that was a hint. Maybe that's why I brought up the ESL thing right away when they wanted. Basically, the ESL teams in North America held out for a day.
What was
Congratulations on your fucking boycott. You lasted a day. Good ball sack you got there, guys. But they were trying to do it to push the league to more.
What was the reason for that?
They wanted more slots in the league because of the Winter Fox issue and the organizations and teams not keeping the same positions.
Yeah,
basically they wanted to make sure TSM got through and. I can't remember what happened. Well, basically, the whole.
And this is when everyone starts going on Twitter and whinging about it, but not actually doing anything about it, right?
Exactly.
So I guess this kind of league that avoids our problem. You don't have to whinge about it. It can actually be sorted behind closed doors, and everyone can have their proper input. And a decision is made as a council instead of the person the company that owns the league saying, "No, we're going to do it like this," right? And obviously, that's where they're going with this one. I'm interested to see how this works overall because so far they've got 8 teams. Are they looking to expand that? Is that
7? So
7. Okay.
So I'll come back to the other quote I want to bring up in a second. Just to give you an idea who is in this picture, left, obviously, that's Zeus, former coach of LG, now playing with Immortals. We'll go bottom row. That's a little easier. We see Energy, so we know Shaq's organization and whoever else is involved with that. Yeah. Gob B, that's who's in the picture. Beside him, I'm not entirely familiar with the face, but then we see Pimp, Hayes, so Liquid, CLG. Front in the far right, that's...
You've got so you've got it listed though. You've got TSM, Cloud9, Liquid, CLG, Immortals, NRG, Complexity.
Well, that works. That works. But just to give you an idea who's in here, Jason Lake's in the back, middle. Jack Etienne from Cloud9 is second from the left in the back. I can't remember if that's Reggie's beside the Immortals owner, I think. I can't remember who's in the front. That's TSM. No, sorry, Reggie's TSM. That's Liquid's owner, I think. I can't remember his name, but that's Liquid's owner. So there you go. I mean, there's who it is. It's all those organizations which we know have good rapport amongst each other from League of Legends, and we're a little bit miffed they weren't part of WESA. I imagine that was the triggering point to start
I guess that makes sense, right? So they're kind of like responding, say, well, if you're going to have your own kind of little boys club, we'll have our own one over here in NA as well and kind of start. The fact is they've got that kind of investment, like $1 million. They're not messing around with this one. This is a serious deal, and that's kind of interesting. I mean, so you can't have a league with 7 teams. It doesn't really work. So.
Well, that's where you got to wonder. Immortals, that's not just North America now. You've got a Brazilian team involved. Interesting thing is the SK thing. They signed behind the back of Luminosity. Yeah. You would have thought with Luminosity they would have gone this route, but with SK, S-Force, they're obligated to stick with WESA. They can't really do this. So we are starting to see this organization have power battle where people are pulling themselves apart. And I think that, I'm speculating, but I think there's going to be leagues cut out from this. The first and foremost that has no ties to either of those organizations, the World Esports Association and the Professional Esports Association. I'm going to make one called Dick Waggers Esports Association just to have an esports association and be involved. But they're tied to 2 very specific leagues now, this North American and ESL. Yeah. ECS is a little bit, look, Facet's done great work. They've got good rapport in the community, but they're on the outside of this right now, it would seem.
Yeah.
And I think that we are starting to go to leagues that are going to dominate. There's too much saturation. ECS is in a bit of trouble. E-League won't be. I think they're fine. They've got good structure. But I'm very curious to see where this takes us.
We've got the ECS season kicking off, in a couple of weeks, actually, I think it starts. So that's interesting to see. I just want to see how this all works out. I want to see an actual statement from the players and see whether they're staying with these leagues going into next year. They're going to concentrate on this one. Obviously, like I said, they're only going to play against NA teams in this one. So obviously they want to keep their contention within Europe as well. This is upset like leagues like ESL. How does this all work? It's just very interesting.
I think if you get stability, you're never going to get stability between every organization in the world. So if by chance, at whatever reason, look, you can get into political implications aside, if you can get some stability in Europe, if you can get some stability in North America through this, that's great. Let's get Asia on board, and then you have a world final through the former majors, and then you've got very interesting viewership. I think that would be fantastic if that works. What's underneath the surface that we're talking about, who knows? But look, the thing is, this is North America responding. They want equal treatment and all of this, and the organizations think that they deserve it. And you know what? Some of these guys are huge organizations. The one name, did you read Optic off that list?
No, I did not.
So I wouldn't be surprised if they get in on this somehow too.
So I guess this is like the founding partners, right? These are the people that brought it together. They're showing what they're about, and now they can probably approach more teams and say, "Look, this is what we're doing. You want to be part of it." So yeah, definitely very interesting to see what comes. I'm sure we're going to see a lot of press releases. I'm sure Richard Lewis will do a video on this, and he can explain to us in true depth what's really going on. I'm sure he's got a big scoop already. But still, yeah, it's kind of interesting now. CS:GO is getting to the point where we're having all this kind of politics and drama. Like every week, it's getting to a point where it actually is getting like traditional sports in that respect. It's not just a Wild West anymore. It seems like everyone's forming together and making these organizations.
There's the quote, the Wild West. This marks the end of the Wild West days of esports, said Jackie Tien, Cloud9 CEO.
Yeah.
The community and players want stability and dependability. I agree. We do. We want it done right, but we do. And leagues come and go, teams join them and depart, but with PEA, teams are making a long-term commitment to be here, playing for the fans for the indefinite future. And I agree. Look, I've said it time and time again. Riot, say what you want, and we know that there's been a lot uncovered there as of late with, can't put a fucking sponsor on your jersey. How the hell am I supposed to get money? Sorry, Darkin. Thanks for paying us for fucking nothing because we can't be on camera with your sponsor because Riot says so. What kind of dictatorship bullshit is that? But that's another story. Point is, I like the league structure. I like the stability. I'm not necessarily opposed to organizations having the spot, but there needs to be a very strict relegation format ESL to make sure that there's fairness for other teams to come in, and that way other 5 with another organization can get into the league instead of having to leave that organization and giving too much power negotiating 2,000 organizations.
Yeah, that whole Virtus Pro thing, that was like horrible night. That was a nightmare of PR. But the thing is, they like to give it 2 weeks, Matt, and it's all forgotten.
Well,
like,
that's the problem. We have short-term memory loss in esports, don't we?
Yeah.
We're far too forgiving. We're just fans that soak it all up. I just want to watch Counter-Strike. There's people getting fucked over in the background. We don't care.
The players obviously got some concerns, and they want to actually have this stability now. And it's a step in the right direction, I think, just in that respect. Just that everyone's going to be treated fairly now. You're not going to be told exactly what you have to do. Oh, you have to do this. You sign a contract. That's it. It seems like they've got someone protecting them, so people looking out for them, and it seems like an interesting project. I don't want to comment on it too much until I read this press release properly and kind of work out what's going on.
Every single time, and I was look, there was a lot of shit that came out right away with Westa, ESL, and then I will say there are some journalists in our scene that have beef with them, and therefore they're immediate to jump at it. So it does seem to get a little bit of a bias in that sense. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, and I think that this does have potential. I think that there is some names in it. Now, Jason Lake is a guy that, yes, he's a businessman, but he's been in esports from the beginning. There's documentaries on it. He's a guy that believed in the game, all right? He made a point of branding Counter-Strike and building Counter-Strike. And if you're getting people on board like that, then it's got to be good news in a sense, right? Yeah. It's got to be the right people. And I think that there's a chance this does work out. I really hope it does. I think it is partly a response to some of the bullshit that's happened, and that's also encouraging. But grain of salt maybe in there somewhere.
Yeah, well, I guess it's a TBC going forward. We're going to see, I think in the next couple of days, we'll see more and more teams announced. I guess that's the idea. They're going to start releasing the teams as they go along and how they sign them. But still, very interesting times of CSGO. I think the next year as a whole is going to be interesting. We obviously discussed last week the whole idea of we're actually going regulated now. We're getting rid of all the bullshit stuff like skin betting and like kind of removing some of the big events as well. We only have 2 majors, so it's a troublesome time for CSGO in that respect. We're not really sure what the future holds, but stuff like this is actually quite promising to feel like there's regulation and kind of some structure going forward.
Promising, and there's one thing that Valve's not thought about. Well, they have thought about. We know they have, but they haven't done as much about. We were rivaling Twitch's numbers for League of Legends, not necessarily the Asian region.
Yeah.
Without Asia. We lost skins. If we can make the Asian market successful, if we can bring in these Tylus, these Vichis, these MVPs that are showing reasonable results without playing against Western teams full time, that is a massive community that resurges CS:GO in that sense. So we're not dead.
We're definitely not.
Nowhere near dead. I think it's, in some senses, there's a little bit of a bubble that kind of popped. That's fine. Now we know where our real numbers are, which is also good for advertising. I talked about, you want to reach as many people as possible, but you also want to make sure you're grabbing real viewers and not just sort of the what's the word I'm looking for that they use? This
inflated
well, it's inflated, but it's transient viewers where they're just passing by, and you're in their ear and out the other side. But if you bring Asia in, you can grow. There's lots that can be done to still grow this, right? We're on a bit of a flux, I think was a good word that Semler chose, but there's lots to be done. CS is not done growing by no means.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It's a very interesting time, and I'm sure our fate will be decided over this next year to see where it's going to go. And I'm actually quite excited. I think it is nice to see some regulation coming in and maybe people doing something positive instead of complaining about it. Something's been done, right? They've actually gone away and formed this new idea, this new concept, and whether it works out is yet to be seen. But it's certainly going to raise some eyebrows and actually probably force other leagues to do similar sort of I guess, moves in that respect, and we'll see whether this actually brings us all together or maybe segregates us. Who knows? We'll see how it all kind of forms.
Well, there you go, guys. We wanted it to be an abbreviated version of the show being here at Starladder, focusing in on obviously the Lekr0 piece, which I think was a great piece. It was really cool to see a new name and a new talent in the scene. I think a lot of people will take that to heart. Please, by all means, if you liked it, it'll be on YouTube. Share it, tweet it, put it on Reddit, do whatever you want, but make sure that gets seen, because I think Lekr0 is a name that everyone needs to know and know more about. But also a very loose, I will say, brief oversight of our thoughts on this new professional esports association coming out of North America. That's I would imagine, due to start up. I'd say next year at this point. You're getting late. You got ECS coming up,
yeah, sure. Christmas
break. I'd say probably in 2017 we'll see that sort of kick off. But yeah, very cool. And there you go, $1 million over 2 seasons, $500,000 NA League. And if it does create a divide, I'm not necessarily opposed to it. Let's see the majors be the real battleground for these guys, and it would take some travel out of it for some of these guys too, who are all over the map. So, hey, look, thanks very much for joining us. It's awesome. Thanks again to the sponsors, Starladder as well, putting us up in here, and Darken, Space Jam, Twitch, Fnatic Gear. They all are. We talked about people that want to see the scene grow. They're all people that do it too. That's why we're here.
Shout out to Fragbite as well. Let us use their office for that actual documentary. Check them out, fragbite.se. Super awesome guys, and were very welcoming to us once again. We rely on our favors. We have to do that every single week, it seems, with calling in, and we get away with it just about every time. Every week we seem to pull through. So yeah, keep supporting us. Share what you can, and we'll be back next week. We don't know the date. It's a little bit of
I'd love to speculate. The issue is we go right from here, and we fly back Monday. We're in the chair Tuesday at ESL. Cast Wednesday, cast Thursday.
It'll probably be later.
6 a.m. Friday, straight to Bucharest.
Is that the flight?
Yeah, straight to Bucharest. Casting as soon as we're off the flight before we check into the hotel.
Okay, we'll try and do one for Bucharest.
We may have to push it to Monday after Bucharest, so there might be a full sort of 9 days in there. I mean, think of that schedule. Straight out of here, after casting this event, hanging out at the after party, on the flight, back in, 12 hours to rest, casting, sleep, casting, flight, casting as soon as we get off the flight, sleep, cast, flight back to ESL, 1 day potentially to do the show, ESL again.
And then we do the week of ESL, and then we got ESL New York after that, I think. So, and that's literally...
Woo! Let's go, esports,
then
baby!
Fly to New York Friday, come back, do it all again. Our lives are fucked for the next month, but we love it. We wouldn't be anywhere else. And on that note, Matt, we don't have you're going to work on a catch racer next week. You're going to give us something we can sign off with. But don't go anywhere, I guess. Keep following us, all the social media. And we'll see you next time.
I think what we need to do is we need to get like a vote in Twitch chat.
Okay.
And if enough people vote for defusal, we get the bomb has been defused, counter-terrorist win. But if enough people vote for the explosion, we need to get explosion noise, and that's the end of it.
We'll work on that. We'll see what Tom can do.
Probably be better than that. That's terrible. But we'll see.
See you later. Thanks for tuning in.
We are gamers. We are one. We are Darken.
stuck in the sight, finding wall. That's brilliant. And Kenny S again up close. Oh my goodness, Kenny S.
Everyone chasing down, gets a trap, and the knife comes in. Simple, of course, stabs him straight in the chest.
So aggressive blade, Dennis catches him off. That's ungodly from Dennis.
Oh my God, that awareness, the timing works out perfectly, just as they tell